All right, it looks like everything is working over here. We're on time today. Yeah, we're on time. Cool. So,
Oh, nice, yeah.
hopefully the feed is now catching for everyone to be watching. So, this is the On Just Restart podcast. We do it every Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. This time I am joined by Dumo Plays. Dumo, his channel is linked in the description below. How you doing, bud?
Good, yourself?
Good. As we were talking about earlier, I expect to get hit with a lot of yawning and exhaustion soon, but for right now, the energy is booming, so at least we'll be off to a good start. We also have Brandon from What About Nintendo. He is here. He's in the flesh. His channel is also linked in the description below. How you doing, bud?
Second.
Only a second. Well, it was 1 week.
1 week missed? Yeah. Why did I miss that week? I forget.
I
was at my...
No, you had a...
No, that was when I was at my family's place, because I hadn't seen them in like a month because I moved out. And then I moved again, what was that, Friday? Yeah, Friday. And now I'm here. So.
There you are. You're alive and everything is well. Good. So, the topic for tonight. We're going to be talking about a couple things. One, the big topic is how we recently got news that from VentureV, Jeff Grubb wrote another report. The same guy who told us there'd be a Nintendo Direct and all that stuff that's been right. He is also saying that there will not be a summer or an E3 Nintendo Direct. You know, that first or second week of June where we always get the big E3 Direct from Nintendo. That won't be happening due to pandemic-related delays. So we're talking about that and what that could mean for the rest of the year, how we sort of think the year's going to pan out. So that's going to be the bulk of the discussion. But we're also going to be talking about Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, because it's awesome, and also because we got some more news on it. We learned that the epilogue story, the little expansion Future Connected that we're going to play in the game, is going to include a new battle system and also a whole new map to explore. So we're going to be talking about that as well, and I'm sure at some point we'll probably touch over the topic about whether it's a remaster or a remake, because that's been the talk this week. I just made a video. It came out with it today, so I'm sure some of you saw it, some of you may have not, but yeah, we'll be talking about all that today and whatever you guys in the chat want to talk about, of course. So, you guys have anything else you guys want to talk about before we jump into the thick of things?
I fixed my Joy-Cons this week. That was pretty sweet.
Oh, did you?
Oh, nice.
Did you do it?
Joy-Con?
Did you like order like the sticks from like eBay or Amazon and fix it yourself?
Not even
Okay.
simpler. So I had stick drift in 4 Joy-Cons, which was driving me nuts out of my 6. I actually bought an electronics contact cleaner that was quick dry, and just lifted the flap, sprayed some in, rotated it around, and
So that just blows air? Is that what it does?
it's an actual cleaner. It's like a physical cleaner that takes like gunk off of things, and it just cleaned up the sensor. It took about 30 seconds of Joy-Con, and then I just gave it 5 minutes to let it make sure it dried up so I didn't damage anything, and they're all working just fine now.
So you
I remember hearing about that a while ago.
You bought a contact cleaner.
Yeah, it's an electronics contact cleaner, so it cleans on contact.
Huh.
Self-dry. Give me a sec. I'll go grab the can.
Okay. I'm just thinking I might have to use this because I'm always terrified of using my Joy-Cons when I play Smash, because I just feel like they'll just tear apart.
Yeah.
Like the innards.
And I think that's all backwards, but it's just an electronic contact
I read
cleaner.
it. Yeah. Maybe it might represent backwards on my for some reason I haven't flipped. I don't know why. Yeah.
I don't know how that works on
but I
on
see
screen, but there you go. It's just simple. There's a whole bunch of different ones, and yeah, it works.
Okay.
I don't know how long it's going to work for. I've heard they work for a decent amount of time, but
yeah, because I think all it's doing, it's basically like, I think there's like this sheet that's like within the Joy-Con that sort of wears away, and that creates a lot of dust particles and makes it harder to read. I guess it wouldn't technically be dust, but there's like residue, right? And eventually that kind of clogs things up. So if you blow it all away, it's gone. But the fact remains is that sheet is still sort of like diminishing.
I think there's more to it than that, because I blew air in there and it did nothing. So I bought a
I've
contact
had
cleaner.
times where I could blow air
Fine.
into it and it would work for like 30 minutes to an hour, and then it would start doing it again.
Yeah, this has been a couple days. I've heard of people doing. I've been meaning to do it for a while. I've heard of people doing it, and they were like 3-4 months on without any issues. But I didn't want to say anything until I had actually done it.
Yeah, how much did that
Because if
cost
I-
you, by the way? I mean, I guess
was like-
it's in Canadian dollars, so it's a little different, right?
It's like it was like $5 or $10 or something. It's
Okay.
pretty cheap.
Okay. That's one, and that's something you could probably pick up at your Walmart or whatever if you want to try that option first before you go ahead and buy new sticks and try and replace them yourself.
Yeah, I just did it off Amazon because again, like I don't want to open up a Joy-Con.
I've done
it's
it.
a
It's
lot
terrifying.
To it. I don't want to do it. I
Yeah.
don't look forward to it. So, and I don't really want to spend $100 on a new set. So, you know,
Right.
if you spend $20 on a cleaner and then you clean it out every once in a while when it stops working, works for me. And the one was really, really bad too. Like I went in the switch and to see where it was. It was like, if this is your circle, boom, it's like down here rotating, and I'm not touching anything. And I was like, oh, that's bad. Sprayed it, circled it around, gave it 5 minutes, put it back in, worked fine. It was like dead center. Everything functioned properly. So might be worth a try if people want to check it out. Just make sure you're getting a contact cleaner, and if you can, you're looking for something. This one's 0 residue, and you want something that's quick dry.
Interesting.
Because well, just to make sure that there's not liquid in there, you don't have to leave it overnight or something.
Yeah.
But
So
there are other, like, there is a WD-40 is a brand. So
Yeah, I know
make
of it.
sure you're getting electronics contact cleaner, not like WD-40 that you would use on like a bike chain or something. There is,
Yeah, you don't want
because
that.
that's
it's a little
caused some
different.
confusion with people. Oh yeah.
Okay, well, the thing is, I'm glad you mentioned that, because like I would have probably thought, oh, WD-40, Dumo Tomei could use that, no problem. I used it for my bike the other day. Oh, I guess my Joy-Cons are broken. Oh well.
Yeah, I'd rather not see that.
Yeah. So let's check in with the chat here. We've got quite a bit of activity. Hello there, Control Alt Dan, Brand the Pony. How you guys doing? The Joker, what is up? Super Chris, you are here. Brandon added me. Gonna ask you a question for you to answer when the stream starts. So Andres, now that there's no June Direct, do you think Fighter Pass 6 and maybe 7 will be revealed in a Sakurai Presents? I'm only expecting the ARMS character to be fully revealed this June at this point in time. Where do you guys stand on that? Do you guys think that there will be another character revealed sooner to make up for the lack of a Direct?
No,
I don't think so.
I think everything's in scramble. We're in again, like, normal rules don't count anymore. Like, this is not.
Yeah,
this is not the normal.
I wish we could just look at the past and say, hey, the past, they did this, so this is what's going to happen. We're not in that under those circumstances right now. Like, if we were getting a traditional, like, Big E3 Direct, then I could see maybe a scenario where we get another character reveal. I don't think we're going to get a character reveal during the Smash presentation. I think that's going to be all about ARMS. But I expect the ARMS thing to still happen, because the June time, as far as I'm concerned, is already the delayed time. Like, they already alluded to that in the previous Direct Mini, where they said we had to take a little bit longer, so that's why it's happening in June. So I don't expect it to be delayed any longer, so we're still going to get that in June, I'm pretty sure. And then when we do get a big Direct, which probably won't be in June, but maybe say July or August, maybe then we get the next Smash character reveal, which I think actually makes it a little bit more likely, because then they will have had a little bit more time to work from home, get things going, and then maybe we could see an actual next character reveal then. That's what I'm thinking, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, at most they could maybe delay it another month. Realistically, they can put it they can drop it out of this year if they really wanted to, but I really think they want to get stuff out. It's again, Nintendo's actually doing pretty well during all of this, so they don't want things to dry up, and I feel like they would want to be pushing forward with this as best they can.
They're still working, and we're gonna get to that in a bit. I just want to get through a chat real quick. Let's see here. Sheba, hello. Gabriel, good day or good evening. Vooper, also good evening. Super Mario Malin, good morning. Good morning to you as well. Beverly Carter, hello there. I got another app from Brandon the Pony. Brandon wants you to know that he loves your hair. He freaking loves it.
Oh, nice.
What shampoo are you using?
It's some fucking, like, just normal shampoo. I don't know.
What are you
Whatever
eating?
came
What's
off
your
the
Not
shelf.
even
diet?
name brand.
What's your diet then?
Diet? Oof. What's the day I
Fish
had?
oil.
An oven
Lots of fish oil.
pizza, and peanut butter sandwich, and
It's gotta be the
2
peanut
Mike's Hard
butter.
lemonades. It's the lemonade. That's what it is.
That's what it is. So drink some lemonade and you'll have suave hair like Brandon.
Specifically, Mike's Hard lemonade. It won't work otherwise. It has to be the peach flavor, apparently.
Ooh. Okay then. Hello there, Lazy James. The Joker. There has been a rumor things are happening in May, and what happened? Xbox announced theirs in May, so can't Nintendo do a second mini? I don't expect another mini. Maybe that would just kind of. I don't think that, but I did talk about how maybe we could see maybe like a Mario Direct, or at least they have a couple announcements on Twitter or something like that, one or the other. That's what I'm thinking.
Assuming that's true, I still don't buy the whole Mario thing.
Well, okay, we're gonna get to all of that in a bit. I think that's interesting. Let's see here. Moving through the chat. Gmod, hello there. Actually, that's a good topic to talk about, actually. Gmod's asking, did you guys hear about the Nintendo leak that is over 2 terabytes large? I did hear about it. So I think that could be a whole other conversation right there. We're gonna get to that in a moment. So just pin that. We'll talk about that. Let's see here. Tom Owen, hello there. Can we talk about Metroid? You know what? We're gonna talk about Metroid. That will happen tonight. I guarantee it. I'll make sure we will talk about Metroid, because we're gonna be talking about the years, so Metroid will come up, because I have faith. Maybe. Control Alt Dan, I'm programming while listening to this. Keep up the great work, guys. Thank you very much, Control Alt Dan.
Nice.
Cami Mingo, I hope you also have a great evening. Robeer is saying Nod Nub's hair is killing it. Spoiler,
Thanks.
Brandon is Nod Nub.
Oh, what? Nobody knew this.
Robeer is also saying, I decided to let it grow. I look like Aragorn now. Aragorn is a good person to look like. Aragorn is the dude of dudes.
That's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. I see Emery here gave us a little super chat. Thank you very much, Emery.
Yeah.
He asked, do you think they will do a dual Smash announcement? So I think we kind of talked about it already. Just to reiterate, my perspective is that we're going to get the Smash presentation for ARMS in June. Best case scenario, they could perhaps allude to something, but I think they're going to hold off on the next character reveal until we get that big direct, whenever it does happen. Maybe it doesn't happen later. Maybe it does still happen early June. I'm expecting at least late June, maybe a little bit later. But when it happens, and that's when we'll get the reveal. I think one thing to take into consideration is that the frequency of announcements for these Smash characters is going to be less common than the last Smash DLC cycle, because
it's over a longer period of time.
It's 6 characters over 2 years as opposed to 5 characters in 1 year.
Yeah,
that's about right. Yeah. Or maybe it's like one. Yeah, that's it. Because Joker came out early 2018, Byleth came out early 2019. It was a 1 year cycle. So yeah, it's being spread a bit more thin. And on top of that, there was a delay because of the whole pandemic, and they had to switch over to remote development. And well, we've seen some of that delay with the ARMS character already. So maybe sort of level your expectations a little bit and don't expect reveals as often. I still think we can get a couple this year, but that's not immediately. What were you saying, Dumo?
The other thing I would say to that is also remember we do have a delay, and generally speaking, a delay will delay the next thing as well. So we could be pushing things back further, and with it being more spaced out again. So we have delays, it's being spaced out further, so don't expect, every event that Nintendo does is going to have Smash content.
That's a good point. I guess that it could mean that the deadline for the end of 2021, it might extend until early 2022 now.
It might.
I think they'll still get the end of 2021.
I feel like
I just think it might get pushed a little bit more.
I'm just saying it's in the cards.
Oh yeah.
So like if they did have the final character come out late 2022, they would have a perfectly good excuse because, well, the pandemic delayed things by a couple months.
They were early on their last deadline, because before they said that it's going to be by February 2020, they got out Byleth in January, so they're a little bit early. So maybe they have it pushed a little bit early, or a little bit later than they actually think it's going to be. So maybe with the delay, it'll actually just
because I think they had filmed they had filmed the Byleth presentation like not too long after the Terry presentation. They just revealed it like a couple months later. So
yeah, it was like back in like October or November they filmed it.
Yeah, so they definitely were ahead of schedule. They were already done with the first. They started development for Fighters Pass 2 in September. That's when they announced it. That they already said. So if you go back to the September Nintendo Direct last year, when they made the announcement for Fighters Pass 2, their literal wording was Fighters Pass Volume 2 now in development. So at that point, they had already started development. We don't know how much sooner. I'm assuming not too long before that announcement. But the point is, as early as September, they were already working on Fighters Pass 2. So, they've been getting work done. But still, they had that estimated like final release date for late 2021. So I would still expect them to sort of hold to that. And I agree, Dumo, that they could probably catch up by the time we get to that point, but I think it's at least in the cards that it could take a little bit longer, but I agree, probably not.
Just to point out one thing in chat, Control Alt Dan says maybe things being delayed is a good thing. It gives developers and publishers more time to smooth smooth things out in time for the game's eventual release, and all we have to do is wait. As far as that goes, again, like it's even if they're not working on it right now, like if Sakurai isn't working on this right now, you can bet he's thinking about it. And the longer you give that guy a chance to think and come up with ideas, the more interesting stuff is going to come out of him. And same with a lot of developers where they just want to be there working on it, and they'll be thinking about it. They're going to have a lot of ideas coming to the table. So
that's an interesting point.
You could see some interesting stuff coming up in the next year.
Humanity in general has been doing a lot of thinking lately, right? We've had a lot more time to do thinking. So even if hard labor is not being done right now, that thinking there will be some fruits to that thinking in the future. I don't know if we'll be able to sort of like have like tangible information of what that difference will make, but I'm willing to bet, to your point, that there's probably gonna be some pretty good ideas down the road. So let me continue moving down the chat here, and I do want to talk about what was brought up earlier in the chat about the whole leak thing going on with the legacy content. I think that's pretty crazy. Let's see, I got a couple asks. Kai Mango, do you think the Pokemon DLC will be delayed? I also don't think that will be delayed either, because that was also in the Direct Mini tour at the very end. My perspective was that they sort of shoved in that DLC at the end of the Direct Mini because they didn't have anything else to show off, because that was one of the few things they had to show off that they were like, hey, this is going to be out on time. And it's DLC. I feel like they were probably already pretty far into the first pack when they revealed it back in January. I'm personally fully expecting it to come out this June, especially because it hasn't been delayed yet. We're a month away, so I feel like probably happening. Like if they reassured us on a second occasion within a few months that it's coming out around this time, then I feel pretty good that it's going to be out during that time. So while we may not have the E3 Direct, we'll at least have the ARMS character DLC from Smash Brothers, and we'll have the Pokemon Isle of Armor DLC for Sword and Shield, both in June. So that's something to look forward to at the very least. You guys disagree with that, or do you think maybe the Sword it could be potentially delayed?
I mean, there's always some potential for it to be delayed. They had that whole kind of warning in front of the Direct, where it was like, hey, coronavirus might affect this. So, I mean, there's always a potential, but I agree it's probably going to come out. They did reassure us a second time, really close to its release, so I don't think it will get delayed.
If it gets delayed, I could see it being like a week or two, just pushing it to the beginning of the next month. I feel like they'd have to be pretty far along in it, and the fact that they haven't delayed it yet means that they're expecting it to make release.
Yeah, if anything, just check the eShop. If that June date disappears, then be like, oh no, what's going on? But I think I'm optimistic that at least will be okay. So, yeah.
If it does get delayed, it's not gonna. I highly doubt it's gonna be a long delay, so it won't be that big a deal.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on here, I see Brandon the Pony added me. I honestly hope a new Mario Kart comes out for the holiday season. One with story mode, mission mode, every character and track, new characters and new tracks, every battle track. Maybe that'd
be epic.
It would definitely be epic. I'll take it for sure. Let's see here. Tomo1, thoughts on Prime 4? Do it. Metroid Prime 4, when it does come out, it will be one of the best games on Nintendo Switch in terms of reviews. It will be the best-selling Metroid Prime game. Metroid game, period. I think it's going to sell at least 4 million, which would be amazing for a Metroid game. I think the game is going to be... I think it's definitely going... They're definitely going to have some very fast-paced shooting elements. If you look at the devs they've been hiring a lot of like the top-tier designers from other major first-person shooting franchises like Halo, like Killzone. So I definitely think they're getting in the right type of staff to make like a sci-fi shooter. How is it going to be adventure-wise? I feel like they're still going to do a really good job with that. I think they're being really careful about this, so I'm expecting basically like a modern-day Metroid Prime. I'm not sure about multiplayer, though. I'm still sort of debating that. I feel like because it's Retro Studios making it, maybe they'll just focus on a single-player experience, but also I think the argument could be made that given how prevalent online multiplayer gaming is right now, they might try and shoehorn in a decent online multiplayer mode as well.
Honestly, I hope they just stick to single-player. Like,
that's all
multiplayer
I'm
would be
expecting
good and all, but
at this point.
I would rather them not waste the time on trying to shoehorn in a multiplayer and just give us the best single player you can get.
Yeah.
I have other. The only thing that would kind of
multiplayer.
I view Metroid Prime as kind of like a sci-fi Zelda, a sci-fi shooting Zelda. It's kind of like that, like imagine if Zelda was first person, and it was instead of fantasy medieval, it was horrific sci-fi. And it's shooting. That's what I see Metroid Prime. That is what Metroid Prime is. That it's an adventure game with puzzles like Zelda, but with shooting and sci-fi.
And the one thing I'm actually expecting and looking forward to is finally another game doing proper gyro aiming.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Because they've already done motion aiming in the past, and it wasn't too bad.
I'm also looking forward to a melee hit. I think Samus is gonna have a melee attack in this game.
That'd be cool.
They added it in Samus Returns, and that was for a remake.
Right.
So
I could see it.
It would just kind of make things a bit more fast-paced, and if you go back to Metroid Prime, if you were to critique the game, you can make the argument that Samus is very tanky, and if you look at her original design, the way she played in the 2D games, she was never meant to be tanky, she was meant to be more agile. So kind of speeding up the gameplay, allowing her to sort of run and gun a little bit, throwing in a melee attack sort of really helps that whole blend really well. So sort of keep moving. If you're right in front of an enemy, you bash them, you keep going, things of that nature. So I'm expecting a more faster paced, agile Samus. There's still gonna be first person shooting, but there's gonna be a melee attack. Heck, maybe there'll be more third person elements as well thrown in there. Like, you know, contextually you might see Samus go into third person more often. That'd be interesting to see.
I would like if they had some like parkouring that you go into third person for. Because sometimes those kind of like platforming can be a bit difficult in first person, but also some shooters have pulled it off, so I don't know if you need it.
Maybe you could just toggle.
I don't like platforming in first person because I always just can't.
Maybe you could toggle
where you are.
Like,
that'd be nice.
If you can choose either one that you would prefer.
I would love to toggle it just for more platform heavy sections and then toggle back to first person when I want to shoot more.
I'm perfectly fine playing third person all the way, but that's just not what the game series does. It's not what Prime does.
I'm glad you said that, because that I've heard people brought up, oh, what if they just made Metroid Prime third person? Well, then it wouldn't be Metroid Prime.
It's not Prime 4 if you change it from first person to third person, in my opinion anyways. As much as I prefer a third-person game and third-person, I
if it was just a
have issues
third-person
with
game,
first-person shooters.
yeah, I think it would have been it wouldn't be called Metroid Prime 4. It just wouldn't be.
Yeah, I think they'd have to do a different series on that one.
Yeah.
The other thing about the game too, I'm really looking forward to seeing Retro. And another reason why I don't want there to be a multiplayer is because without it, I feel like Retro can push the Switch a little further, and I want to see what they can do.
I want to see what they can do because we haven't seen what they can do since Tropical Freeze, and that was years ago.
Yeah. That wasn't pushing too much.
You want to know what's crazy? Conceivably, probably not. I don't know. Conceivably, there could be like a 7-year-old watching this podcast, and if you are, hello, but you weren't alive when Tropical Freeze came out. Well, maybe you were 6. Point is, like, there theoretically could be children alive that were born after the release for Tropical Freeze that could entirely understand this conversation we're having, and that would mean that their entire lifespan there has not been a brand new Retro Studios game.
It is pretty crazy.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Come on, Retro. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but I some people are doubtful that they can do anything because they haven't done anything. I don't think Nintendo would have given them the project if they didn't prove behind the scenes that they totally had what it takes to do it.
It's Retro. I'm not gonna. I don't care how many people have changed. Retro is still a high-end studio that, like, I guarantee you have to be a high-end worker with a decent resume if you're not getting an entry-level job going to Retro. You're not. Oh, I graduated out of school at this video game development course. Retro, give me a job. They're gonna be like, no.
No, the Retro Studio is definitely still a high-profile Nintendo developer. And like I said, if you go and you check the different talent they've been hiring really quality talent with great resumes. And I forget, there was an article a few months ago that talked about how many developers are still left over from the initial Metroid Prime development. The initial Metroid Prime, not as much, but there's still like several members from the initial Metroid Prime development. And if you go to Metroid Prime 3, there's still quite a large number of them, like at least a few dozen or so. I'm kind of like, I don't remember the exact numbers, but there were numbers there. So you still have that. You still have the same leadership that has instilled that consistent level of quality in every single game they've released. And obviously Nintendo is still feeding them money. They still run them. They still fund them. That whole high quality that you've seen with every game, I still expect that. And like I said, with the hirings they've been making, they've been doing their research. They are definitely doing everything they can to bring out a really awesome game here. I don't really doubt that.
I have no worries about Retro's capabilities. I will keep my expectations high for Metroid Prime 4 because it is Retro, and there's not too much that you can say that would make me doubt that. So that's where I stand.
Yep, that's a good point. Let's see here. I got another at Camingo. About the Pokemon DLC, do you think it will be other Galarian forms from Legendary Pokemon? If yes, which? I'm not sure I understood the question. About the Pokemon DLC, do you think it will be others Galarian from Legendary Pokemon? If yes, which? For Galarian forms, I think there is going to be more surprises. I don't think they've shown us everything yet, if that's what you're asking. I bet there will be a couple more.
I think what the question is will there be any more legendaries that get Galarian treatment?
Ooh.
Like the bird?
I'm going to say no. I think we know about them all already.
I have to agree with that.
I think there'll be a couple more normal, I don't want to say normal, but non-legendary Galarian form Pokemon that we'll see in both packs, maybe. Like a couple more. But that's pretty much it, I think.
How many of those do you think are going to be Gen 1?
Galarian form Gyarados, anyone. That'd be pretty cool, though. Gyarados is a sick Pokemon, so that... Or what about Dragonite? We need a Dragonite Galar. I want some Dragonite love.
It's Galar, the dragon. Englet,
for real, when you think about it like that, there's gotta be one. So, Crown Tundra, Icy Mountain, Ice, maybe there's a special, like, new Dragon Knight form deep in this ice mountain hiding, then it's, I don't know, ice fire or something like that. That'd be crazy.
I could see something.
And it would totally die to Stealth Rock. Unless it has my favorite theoretical non-existent ability of Void Rock. Just can't get hit by any rock moves, including Stealth Rock. Which would probably make it broken then, because if it's your ice fire, like, that is literally the only thing that kills you. Maybe, oh, you got water. And just water. And ground. Water and ground. Water, yeah, I think that's it. Oh, fighting. No, yeah, ice actually makes you really brittle, so...
Yeah, ice has a
fine.
lot of weaknesses.
It'll be fine. They could get rid of the rock weakness, and it'll still have plenty of weaknesses. It'll be balanced enough. Let's see here. Brand Anatomy. Also, do you think in 2021 we could get a new Mario Party that brings back big, unique boards, Bowser? Yeah, actually. 2021 makes sense. Did we get any DLC for Super Mario Party? I think we didn't.
No.
So, I mean, I think that's suggestive that they probably just moved on to whatever they were working on next. That could be another Mario Party. So that wouldn't shock me if that happened.
I don't... What year were they saying? 2020 or 2021?
2021. Yeah, it would be next year.
When did the last one come out? 2019?
I want to say 2018.
2018? Oh, maybe then.
2019.
It was 2019. That's pushing it a bit, but...
I don't remember.
All I can say is if they're gonna do it, let's see some like proper online.
Yeah,
play.
It came out October 5th, 2018.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
2018.
maybe.
We really need online. I don't understand why the game doesn't have online. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, but it does.
Topachulo. Speaking
Just
of
not
agility,
what people want.
what do you think if the game had or even focused mostly around Samus's physical abilities outside her power suit? So like Zero Suit Samus stuff? Like I think it would be fun, but I feel like if you start venturing into like taking Samus out of her suit, why is she out of her suit? If we're having extended gameplay sessions with her out of her suit, I just don't think that would be a good direction. I don't know. Like, I'd like to see it. Like, it would be really cool. It's like if there's like stealth situations where acting as Zero Suit Samus makes sense, then go for it. Or if maybe there's some exploration of towns or cities where you can actually explore some actual sci-fi cities, which would go against the whole like isolation aspect for Metroid. But if like,
Right.
I feel like there's room for both though. Like I understand that Metroid, it's really all about isolation, but if you're able to travel away from planets, like when you're within those dangerous areas, you do still get that sense of foreboding, that dark atmosphere, that level of isolation. And I still think you could have some more non-isolatory spots, like where you are in a public setting. I think that's possible. That was my argument for why I didn't like. I still thought Metroid Prime 3 was pretty good because you actually had friends, and you lost them. So there was like more of a contrast in Metroid Prime 3. You had a comparison because in the beginning of the game it was a lot more lively. There was more people you knew, and you lost them throughout the game. So you can make the argument that by giving you the like people to hang out with, that could, and you take it away from Samus, that could perhaps add to the isolation, I think. Although that's just my perspective. I think a lot of people didn't necessarily love Metroid Prime 3 as much, partially because of that, but I guess it's subjective.
I think it would be cool if they had like, not towns or cities, but just like other sentient beings like around the map. Kind of like how, obviously it's the 2D games, it's not exactly the same, but like how Hollow Knight, you're very much alone and everything's really dangerous, but all of a sudden you get to like some random weird character just kind of like hanging out, just chilling. And then...
In which case, is there really any need to go into Zero Suit then?
No, I don't like the Zero Suit idea. I just kind of wanted to address the, having other characters and still, getting that sense of being alone.
Yeah, I kind of like your point though. I think that could kind of work a little bit better.
I don't think we need cities or towns or like
maybe if we really want our big sci-fi open world cities, Star Fox.
Yeah.
Or Captain Falcon.
See, I don't know. If you're gonna go with Zero Suit, I feel like if you're breaking it up like that, it would be kind of like how vehicles are used as far as game design goes, where it's used to break up the gameplay and just have like something different in the middle so it's not repeating the same thing over and over again. But I don't see a point as to why you would use Zero Suit for it versus like if you go Zero Suit, I feel like you're gonna end up in a vehicle. Like I just
No.
Yeah.
But other than breaking it up, what else really is there from a design aspect?
I don't
And
know.
so I just don't. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not personally big on the idea.
I think you guys are probably right. I am having a hard time imagining the appropriate way they could utilize Zero Suit Samus where it would make sense within the context of how we understand Metroid Prime as it is right now. I guess where I'm sort of considering that it might happen is that I remember when they revealed Ridley, there was also a big focus on showing off Zero Suit Samus, and at the time, it did feel like they were perhaps teasing something about Metroid, but then again, what happened later that year, or rather, nothing happened, because supposedly we were going to get a Prime reveal at the Game Awards that never did happen, and then shortly after, in January, they announced the delay. So maybe initially they were considering using Zero Suit Samus to some capacity, but that's also maybe why, could have been a big reason why the game wasn't going to be very good, or at least in Nintendo's eyes, good enough, so that's why they canned development. I'm just saying, it wouldn't shock me if at one point they were at least considering it. And they still might be considering it, and maybe there's a good way to utilize it, but I agree that at least the way we understand Metroid Prime now for what we want it to do, it would be kind of hard to implement Zero Suit Samus outside of some cutscenes.
Yeah, I just don't.
I have no idea.
I just don't see it.
Implement
Again, they're very creative, so maybe they can come up with something. But at this point in time, I just don't see something that makes sense.
Okay, here's an idea for you. Actually, I had an idea. Okay, so like a way how it could sort of work. So imagine a Metroid Prime isn't quite first person, isn't quite third person. It's a hybrid, which actually, if you think about it, probably a lot of games are hybrids already in that sense. But it would be a game that would sort of switch.
Like an over-the-shoulder game?
No. Like maybe in some situations potentially that, but what I'm really suggesting is that what if, as it already happens in Metroid Prime, you switch from first person to morph ball all the time, but what if in certain situations you switch to different modes that make more sense? Like, for example, maybe the perspective changes a little bit when you're platforming, or when you're shooting it is mostly first person, or then there's a morph ball mode when you want to roll around and do little puzzles and go inside holes. But maybe there's circumstances where being leaner is actually smarter. So say like when you do dodges, maybe Samus's suit can like depower like dynamically as you do dodges, and that's when you see Zero Suit Samus like in flashes, like it like jumps into third person, you do some sort of crazy like dodge because you're a lot leaner in that way, and then you'll flip around, jump back into first person, and do a really big blast with your cannon. Like it would be something that would be very cinematic. That's the only way I could sort of envision it where it would work, where there would be some sort of like transition, and it would only make sense because you'd make Samus more agile than she. And the other thing is that even with the power suit, Samus is supposed to be agile, but the way at least she was designed for the Metroid Prime trilogy, she has these giant hulking shoulders, which makes it hard to imagine her as like, you know, something that could like really be super agile. It's kind of hard to envision, which is why Zero Suit Samus makes sense.
I could see them having like two modes of fighting, like where you could switch between them on the fly, and one of them is obviously a power suit which controls more like normal, but one of them would be Zero Suit Samus and you're way faster, maybe. But you take a lot more damage. So it could be more like that kind of mechanics, like
yeah, I mean, I think it's possible.
Take more damage.
I think it's possible. But also there's like no protection, right? Like and also like maybe there are some places where you won't be able to breathe if you're not with the power suit. So maybe you would be able to use Zero Suit Samus for certain circumstances where you want more agility, but there will be a lot more circumstances where you'll be in space, or there'll be radiation, or it'll be too hot or too cold or underwater, or you're just being under fire and you should most of the time will still be in Samus's normal power suit, but maybe they could include some stealth missions or certain circumstances where you want to be more agile and vulnerable. Maybe. We'll see what Retro Studios comes up with, I guess. Oh, Cammy Mango, you're fine. French? I wish I spoke French. I almost remember being able to count to... I can't do it. Un, deux, trois, quatorze, cinq. Yep, I probably even butchered those numbers, so I'm not gonna try. Lil Squirt asked me, do you got any Charizard figurines? I have a Charizard amiibo. I have like 2 Charizard dolls. Then there's a Charmander. You can probably see a Charmander right there in the back. Not just the cardboard, but also like there's a doll. And I have 2 Charizard dolls, and then there's that thing over there, and then I also have a Charizard shirt, and I have like 7 Charizard teams and like maybe 20 boxes of Charmanders. So like I could create like a whole Charmander farm.
Nice.
Yeah. Nah, that's my favorite Pokemon. Alexander, what if Alex tries to revive a controllable Dark Samus using Samus's suit after setting her up in a trap? She abandons the suit to survive and has to fight them. Let me reread that. What if Alex tries to revive a controllable Dark Samus using Samus's suit after setting her up in a trap? She abandons the suit to survive and has to fight them. I mean, that would be like a circumstance where she has to rely on her Zero suit, and then maybe she has to retake that. I mean, that would be a cool situation. Again, I don't know if that would be something they could do consistently, but maybe.
It would be interesting, actually, if you know how it's kind of a thing that in the Prime games you have everything, and then your suit gets damaged and you have to like go build your power-ups. When instead of starting from just the base suit, you actually start from the Zero suit, so you're not the suit at all.
And you build up. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah. That would be really cool, actually, being able to build up. Instead of losing all your powers in the beginning, you build up. So that could be something we could maybe see. That's a good idea. So I'm going to answer one more question, then we're going to actually get to the topic. I just realized it's 9:45, and we haven't gone specifically to the topic. We've touched on them through the questions, but we haven't really jumped into it yet. So we're going to jump into it now. Super Mario Talon, what do you think the holiday title will be? I hope it's Breath of the Wild 2, but...
Yeah, Breath of the Wild...
Worst case scenario, and this might not be that bad of a scenario, but it's possible that maybe the year is kind of vacant and there's only like maybe 2 or 3 big Nintendo games, and the big holiday title is the Mario remasters. Like, maybe. I hope not. Like, I want the Mario remasters, but I would prefer a ground up new game. But if it's not ready, it's not ready. So I'm hoping for Breath of the Wild 2. Mario Kart's in the conversation as well, and the Mario remasters I hope is something separate from that. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I could see it being Mario Kart. I mean, unless they're gonna try to do more to push ARMS again, which I think.
Do you think they'd make ARMS the big holiday title?
I could see them doing like DLC for something for ARMS, but I think it's too far gone now. I think it's gonna. Without having anything that we've heard about, I feel like the studio's moved on to Mario Kart, so it's whether or not it's ready on time.
Maybe.
Mario Kart would be nice, but as we've discussed before, it's not the kind of game I really want for the holiday.
I don't consider it as like the big holiday title. I've seen Mario Kart be a big holiday title for the handhelds, so.
I still want Paper Mario to be a thing.
And I'm okay with Paper Mario Kart coming out this year. But what I have a problem with is the idea that we get Mario Kart, a new Paper Mario, the Super Mario remasters, and Super Mario 3D World Deluxe all within the final 6 months of the year.
Yeah.
Like, I think I understand 35th anniversary, but they didn't do that much for the 25th anniversary, and I guarantee you the 25th anniversary is a much bigger deal than the 35th anniversary. So I'm just saying, like, I feel like they should space it out a little bit more.
That feels like 50th.
I feel like that's too much even for a whole year, and we're talking about just 6 months. So that's my perspective.
For a year.
But you know, if that's all
Usually we
Nintendo
get, like,
has.
2, maybe 3 Mario-related games in a year.
Yeah, and
That's
we
usually
haven't.
the
I don't know. Hard to say. All right, so let's jump into topics now. So first, I want to talk about what was addressed in the chat earlier. What do you guys make of this situation? How there's this huge breach, a privacy breach, and like this company that Nintendo had to help control their servers. There's this huge breach and a whole bunch of legacy content, like information about coding for the GameCube and the N64 and the Wii, and a whole bunch of classic games were leaked. I haven't looked into this at all. I know very little about this. I just heard about the reports right before the podcast. Sounds terrible. It doesn't seem like anything modern has been leaked at this point, but it's kind of crazy that's even happened. I guess because there are people who are hackers that have even more time now. They're just found a way to break into Nintendo servers.
Hacking
I didn't think about how much time hackers have now. It's interesting.
Well,
dangerous.
Let's see here. Nintendo has had 160,000 eShop accounts hacked. What was the other one? PayPal's been hacked. Everyone's getting hacked right now. Even like my emails are like quadrupled the amount of junk of, oh my goodness, click on this because you've been hacked. It's like, no.
Oh god.
Yeah, my work phone has been getting some weird messages. This is my work phone. Not many people have that number.
Yeah, so I think people are at home bored and looking for a way to make some money.
Yeah, it's strange. I
think this could be really good for the emulation community because they have a lot of more of the source code and stuff. So that might be able to make emulators a bit faster, a bit more accurate. That could be good.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Nintendo's not happy about this.
No. Nintendo's, I'm sure, very upset.
They wouldn't be happy with anything being leaked, and if it was my company, I sure wouldn't either.
Yeah.
No.
This was pretty bad.
I would be upset.
Yeah. It's pretty nuts. Yeah, actually, Vooper made the same point that emulators could probably. It makes sense. Now, what will be interesting is if this like improves like Dolphin emulation for some of these older games, and how that compares to, for example, the Mario remasters that come out later this year. That could be interesting, which might be another reason why Nintendo might not like that people stole all this content, because they could find ways to emulate some of these games, and it might sort of take away a little bit from their remasters if people are like emulating these games and they're sort of like pseudo remastered already in that way. And actually, I heard that a whole bunch of like Unreal videos for Super Mario were taken down recently, and there's been some speculation that could be related to the Mario remasters. I don't know if it's necessarily related. It might be, but I'm gonna say probably not. But I'm just putting it out there because it's been part of the conversation.
Speaking of, Nintendo made it a point to say and talk about how good they were with using Unreal Engine. Back when that came around, they talked about how they basically have mastered it, and now apparently developers can contact them for help if they're having issues with Unreal on the Switch. And
I didn't know that.
We've seen what, one Unreal game out of Nintendo?
What was that, the Kirby game?
Yeah, they said it was
Kirby
or the Yoshi?
That the
One of
Switch
the two.
itself was particularly good at using Unreal Engine 4 because of the way they implemented it. But yeah, from Nintendo themselves, we haven't seen very many. We've seen a lot.
I looked up an
of
article
third-party
here. This
using
is
Unreal Engine 4.
back from 2017. Nintendo is using Unreal Engine 4, and Miyamoto says that they have mastered. Interesting.
So, just on the point, it just sparked the memory because you mentioned Unreal videos coming down and Mario, and it's like, well, what if they decided that, oh, we're gonna remaster or remake a bunch of the old games, and rather than creating engines for them, they're like, let's just whip it up in Unreal, just to push it out the door as fast as possible, cut down on dev time. I don't know if they would, because that's a lot of money to be giving.
I wonder what the Crash and Spyro games engine. What are those games running on?
I have no idea.
Is it Unreal? Forget.
It feels like Unreal just by looking at it, but I don't really. I'm looking it up. Maybe there's not a specific answer on it. If someone in the chat knows, that'd be cool.
Well,
I'm just trying to look up like like just history of other remakes happening through the Unreal Engine. That's all I'm looking up.
I'm not sure about that. So again, Reddit. So who knows?
Yeah.
But they say that it used Vicarious Vision's Alchemy engine.
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not Unreal, so. Yeah, anyway, hard to say what's.
Since it was made by Vicarious Vision, so.
Makes sense, yeah, you're right. Yeah, but in terms of, like, these leaks, I'm not going to advise that you look into it because it's illegal, but, you know, it's pretty nuts.
Right.
But anyway, let's actually jump into the bulk of this discussion now. First, let's talk a little bit about Xenoblade. So, we recently heard that there's going to be a little bit of a different battle engine in Future Connected. Shulk will no longer have his ability to see the time anymore. He'll have to be really good about sort of thinking ahead instead. And kind of like Rex, actually, in Xenoblade 2. Basically, you're going to be doing a lot of side quests in Future Connected, and you're going to be building a relationship with the Nopon. And Nopon can come in during battles to help you do big attacks. So that's kind of how the new engine's going to work. And it's a whole new map you're going to be exploring. So based from all of this, it really just sounds like Future Connected is another Torn of the Golden Country. Like, we're talking about having side quests to do, a whole other world to explore. It's taking place a year after Xenoblade 1, which means if you know the story for Xenoblade 1, the entire world has to be different. So this is big, I think. It's like they gave us Xenoblade Chronicles 2 with Torn of the Golden Country in one package as a new release.
Right. I think Monsoft just likes making new battle engines. They just make new ones for everything.
There's 5 Xenoblade games now. We got Xenoblade,
Get DLC,
2,
new battle
X,
engine.
Torna, and now Future Connected. Yeah.
Hey, if it's what they like to do, you know.
I'm not complaining.
I've been pretty impressed so far with what they've
Yeah,
done.
they're
So.
all really good. I especially loved the way Torna's battle system was. I thought it was actually better than the original Xenoblade Chronicles 2 battle engine. So.
I thought, yeah, I mean, they improved upon it with Torna, and which it looked pretty good. It seems like that's the engine they're using with Definitive Edition. But I've heard some debate about that, and I'm really curious what you guys think, because I know both of you guys know a lot, or at least a lot more than the average person when it comes to, like, tech and games. So, there's been a lot of debate about whether Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is a remake or a remaster. I made a video, I came out with it, I talked about it. The way I sort of, like, shared out my thoughts is that I'm sort of thinking that there's a bit of a spectrum here. You have your bare bones ports, which I would still qualify as a remaster if it's been improved in any way. That's by definition a remaster. So even if it's just been upscaled to HD, remaster. But then you have things like Wind Waker HD, which took about 6 months to develop. They had to change around the lighting engine, redo some of the art, and move around character models and things of that nature. So that took some work. And I think when the game came out, some people were even calling it a remake at the time. I would personally define that as a remaster. Then you have stuff like the Crash Trilogy or the Spyro Trilogy or Shadow of the Colossus. All of those games are the same experience, just with an entirely new graphical engine, but it's the same type of gameplay with some quality of life changes. I qualify that as a remake, but some people are no longer qualifying that as a remake because they are saying that a remake is what we see with Final Fantasy VII Remake or Resident Evil 2 Remake or Resident Evil 3 Remake, where some of the story elements are either somewhat reorganized or literally different, and the gameplay is a different type of gameplay. Like, it's no longer just better graphics, it's a somewhat different story experience and actually an entirely different way to play the game, like almost to the point where it's a different genre. Actually, Final Fantasy VII Remake is a different genre than Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII was a pure RPG. Final Fantasy VII Remake is an action real-time RPG. It's different.
Right.
So
I would say Samus Returns on the 3DS is also a reimagined game. It's very different from the original.
Has some different gameplay components, that is true. And I would place Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition on the remake end. It's not a reimagining like Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it is, to me, like, fundamentally new. Because the entire,
Right.
from what I can see, is running entirely on the newer adapted engine from Torn of the Golden Country. And there's a new art style. Like, if you look at the characters, those are different designs. You look at the environments, if you look at the actual pictures, there is new geometry there. And of course, you have the Future Connect, which is a whole new map and world to explore, and there's a new battle engine there. So from my perspective, like, between everything we're seeing, I think this is a remake, but other people will call this a remaster. What do you guys think?
For me, the way I see it is that it is a remake, but not all the game obviously is remade. I think what they did, and obviously I can't prove this is exactly what they did, but it looks to me like they took the main game, they looked at it to see what was kind of the biggest improvements they made, actually remade those things, and then just touched up everything else. Because there are a lot of assets that are brought over, but obviously there's a lot of just completely brand new stuff, like the character models completely brand new. There's a lot of completely brand new geometry.
Well, yeah, like I've heard
textures
people say that the
other things like
animations
that.
are exactly the same.
Yeah, there are some things that are the same.
They look the
but
same.
a lot of it's remade.
But did you notice the Japanese trailers that came out recently? I think they kind of look better than what we saw initially.
Okay.
And I saw like more cutscenes, and you saw
comparisons,
facial expressions. Like the characters now are having, like, their eyes and mouths are moving
Those
different than they
animations
used
are
to.
definitely different because they didn't really exist before, because they were
The mouths would open,
textures.
and I think maybe eyes would close a little bit.
But they weren't really like modeled. They were just like mostly textures.
Yeah.
So it's not really the same.
Something that people need to start understanding is that just because you've reused something, some sort of an asset or an animation, doesn't mean that they did no work. It doesn't mean that it's the same game. It does, like, Disney reuses animations. Donald Duck's, I think it was, what is it, Goofy? I think they said hasn't had an animation update in 7 years. So, just, this is industry standard. Just stop expecting things that are ridiculous out of people. If you want, so we all want games now, yet we all want them with 100% new animations and nothing reused. If you have a worthwhile if you have a walking animation that works and the character doesn't need a limp or something like that, or some sort of like swagger walk or anything, why would you not reuse your animation? Why are you redoing the entire animation to have it basically look the same? It's pointless.
Right.
So we want these games, but then we're not willing to settle on reused animations. It's just not how the industry works. And now people are getting into it and getting picky over it. We never cared before. You know, like
it's a different standard. Because, you know, we had like Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, the original Resident Evil remake. Those games, they were running on a different graphical engine, but still same type of gameplay.
How long ago was, like, how many generations ago was that though?
GameCube, PS2 era.
Like we're talking.
We're going pretty far back. It's true.
We're talking pretty significant.
We're talking
Now,
about when I started getting into gaming news.
So like when you're looking at your remake, your remaster, your port, your enhanced port, a port is just they brought it over. And again, it's not as easy as here you go. There's work that has to be done.
We hear
An
about ports
advanced
happening Switch all the time. They usually take at least a year if it's
Yeah.
a major game.
Your advanced ports, your upgraded ports are going to have, you know, some upgraded assets to it, but it's going to be the same game. You can even refer to that as a remaster if you want to, where they're just like you could actually say that the port of Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate could be considered at some points a remaster. They completely changed all the texture assets in the game. They redid all of them to be 1080p. Now they still don't look great, and it's clearly a 3DS game, but again, there was a lot of effort that went into that. That wasn't a quick.
It's a
that wasn't
clear
a quick job.
improvement. They remastered some of the content in there.
And then you're looking at remakes. If it is on a different engine, it is a remake. It's not a remaster.
So
it's not a port. It's not a remaster on a new engine.
I agree with you, but a lot of people have looked at Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition and been like, it's running on the same engine as the original Xenoblade. To which I disagree. To which I disagree.
And it's not just running on the same engine. Is it the same? Because Unreal Engine 4 can look completely different from game to game. So if they took the original engine and they reworked the entire original engine, yeah, it's probably still on the same original engine. But is the core of the game and the actual programming, was that just pulled over, or did they rebuild it from scratch? If it was rebuilt, it's a remake. End of story. Where things would get really questionable with Xenoblade is that they could technically have done a remaster, but then they're giving us essentially what appears to be pretty much a whole second game with it, of new content and new everything.
If they were doing that, it would have to have been like that's creating new content. Would they go back to like an old mold of Xenoblade and build from there, or would they be building upon something new?
I feel like it would be. I'm pretty sure they've completely rebuilt the entire game, which it's a remake. You don't need it to be completely changed story and new genres. Like a game like Final Fantasy VII is like, how many of these things have come where it's like it's gone so far and it's now in a different genre. It's clearly a different game, and just because one company has done it doesn't mean that everyone else has been lazy.
In my mind, that actually makes it not a remake, because if you're remaking it, you'd be remaking the same game. It's so different. It's a completely different game. You're not remaking the same game. You're doing something very differently with the idea of the original game. You're not remaking that game. It's a different game now.
With the DLC, yes. But the game itself is...
No, I'm talking about like Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, stuff like yeah. Okay, sorry, yeah. Well, no, 100%. It is a different game. Like, it's not even...
It's called remake, though. That's in the title.
Yeah, they can call it whatever they want. It is a remake. They have remade the game. Now it's also been completely reimagined.
It's been remade into something different.
It is technically a remake.
Yeah, and it's interesting because now I'm hearing a lot of people say that if the game isn't different, it's not a remake. It's just, it's a remake, like the way I understood remake growing up was that remake meant it's the same game, it's just been remade. As opposed to reimagined or rebooted or a different take on the same story.
The purpose of a remake would be to make the game as similar as it was to the original, but look and play better. That's what you think a remake would be.
It's fixing issues. It's modernizing it is what it really is, versus it's modernizing the game at like the core level versus modernizing, like just putting a new coat of paint on it for your assets. It goes a lot deeper than, like, again, it's remade. Just because they remade it the same way, an easy way to tell if it's a remake or a port or a remaster is go to the original version, find a glitch, and see if it still works in the remake. Because if it still works in the remake, odds are pretty good they've used the same...
an engine or a new version of the same engine, so a lot of the glitches still happen. And that's why some of the games, like Resident Evil 4 Remaster on the Switch, has issues. You think that in the GameCube game would be able to run like no problem on the Switch, but the thing is, it's still using that old engine, which isn't built for the Switch.
They haven't remade it.
Modified to help run on the Switch, but it's still the same engine.
Yeah. So, little game here. I'm going to list a couple random games that I want you to tell me if you would consider that a remake or a remaster. So, last year we got The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening for Nintendo Switch. What is it?
Remake.
Yeah, remake.
Why?
Because it's an entirely new engine that plays. Even the gameplay is different with the lack of, or with now it has the scrolling world.
And I feel like there hasn't been debate about that.
All the assets are new.
Has there been a debate about that being
I
a
don't think so.
no.
I
But
think the difference is that one's like completely like every asset is.
it looks
not
entirely
from the
different.
original.
It's a different art
Yeah.
style altogether. But
Yeah.
what do you think was a more ambitious remake, or what do you think changed more about the game? Link's Awakening or Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition? And to be
Obviously
clear,
the scale.
Yeah.
Taking out the just how massive the scale of Xenoblade is, just taking that out of the equation, because literally like that makes it more ambitious than like most remakes. Period.
just because of
right
how big
there.
the game is, but just in terms of like
Right.
what they changed,
I would say.
and I would
In
factor
terms
Future
of
Connected
pure
into their
gameplay
route.
change, from what we know, factoring in Future Connected.
Some
that
people
makes
are
it
want to
more
exclude
even.
that for some reason, but it's part of the package. I don't see why,
Right,
because
right.
it's a separate thing you can access. Like, it's kind of like if the Future Connected story was inside the middle of the game, people would be like, oh, it's an entirely different story. But just because it's accessed at the end or whenever you want to do it, doesn't count.
I'd say Future Connected kind of balances it out. Because the gameplay in Link's Awakening is also very different from the original.
True.
It's no longer like
Yeah.
just 8 directions. You got full 360 degree
Here's the
motion, you
thing
got
though,
the scrolling
we
world.
haven't played Definitive Edition yet, and I
It's
want to
true,
say
we don't know everything that's different.
like
yet.
people are assuming it plays and looks exactly the same. I gotta say, have you guys? I asked earlier. I didn't hear, but did you guys see that latest Japanese trailer that came out?
I kind of skimmed through it.
I think I saw like a little clip here and there on Twitter, but
So towards
I did see most of the
the
Future
last
Connected
couple
stuff.
minutes actually is all Future Connected stuff.
Yeah,
But
that's
what-
when I stopped watching.
Yeah, but like, I look at it and it looks like a new game to me. Like it doesn't really.
The cutscenes are definitely the way they're orchestrated with the camera motion, and just the way the cutscenes are is so much more like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 than the original. They're just so much more like high quality, because the cutscenes
Yeah.
in the original were
Well,
they're a lot
but
more
now the
dated looking.
cutscenes feel like legit, like
They do look a
cutscenes.
lot better.
It feels like
than-
something you'd actually want to watch. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 was like these really, really nasty looking models. Like, oh, okay, I understand what they're telling me and I like what they're telling me, but this looks terrible.
so what you're saying
Yeah.
is that it looks like the game was built in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 engine, and it looks like they may have remade the game and the cutscenes within the engine.
Couldn't be.
Must be a port.
Well, but the thing is, no one will believe that. That is how it looks. It looks like it was. It looks like. So that's an actual. That brings me to what I want to talk about. Some people don't understand how engines work, or oh, that was on this engine, or that engine, or that was ported. They don't understand the terminology and like how development is. But if you look at Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, assuming you don't know about the past or when that game came out, does it look like a modern day game? I would say 100% yes. There's not really any debate.
It looks very similar in terms of quality to Xenoblade 2.
Yeah.
I think there are some assets that you can kind of tell are from the original, but with way better textures and such. But it does look very comparable to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. For the
I'd
most
have to
part.
agree.
But there are definitely some parts where I'm like, yeah, that definitely looks like the original assets, but revamped. Which is, in some cases, this game is, it feels weird, because it feels like some cases this game is remade, and some of it's just, parts of it are just remastered. I mean, it's like I was saying at first, where I think they took the base of this game, looked for, like, everything you'd notice that was changed, like, fully, like character models and anything close to the player, remade that completely, and then just everything like in the background, because the game's huge, and there's a lot of things you don't see very close up at all, so they can just use that original model, put some better textures on it, make it look better in that new lighting engine they have. And,
Right, so what you're
they
saying is it definitely
completely remake that part.
they took the original game, put it into the new engine, and then sort of built around that, which does expedite development.
That's what it looks like to me, in my opinion,
Mhm.
because I see some assets
So-
that look extremely similar polygon counts to the original assets. You can kind of tell, like, it's harder to see the raw polygons because it's a higher resolution and the textures are better.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just kind of like it did in the Wii version, where you could clearly see like each polygon. This one is hard to tell, but if you look closely, you can see some edges on like really expansive walls that look very similar in terms of like the polygon placement.
So
They look almost
here's
like
the
the
thing
exact
that I
same.
want to sort of tackle with though, because what you're talking about, I kind of get it because like when I saw the first trailer, I did get those vibes as well to an extent, but as we've gotten more footage, especially with the most recent trailer, I keep talking to you guys about the Japanese one. I feel like it's made leaps, you know, like as we've gone closer and closer to the final game, like the final product, the way it's gonna look and present may not really give us the same vibes at all. You know what I mean? Like it's changed. Like the last trailer I saw looked way better than even what we saw in the Direct Mini. The cutscenes, they seemed a lot more animated. The lighting seemed just to fit better.
The lighting is really good in the remake.
So
we see this every time a game comes out, especially Nintendo, who likes to show off actual in-game footage.
They always show stuff that's like really far behind.
Yeah,
with
well,
the actual development.
You got to remember, like they're putting this stuff out. Like this wasn't something they just whipped up yesterday. Like, this was probably done, like set up and done a couple months ago. This is probably a few months old build to make sure that nothing crashes and there's no issues with it. They put it out. It's not there for you to critique the graphics in the game or anything. It's literally there to just show you something of the game itself. And like, yes, they show things that are not 100% fully polished and it doesn't look perfect every time, but they gave us something that wasn't a cinematic trailer. Like I would much rather that over a cinematic trailer that is something that the system cannot do whatsoever.
I hate it so much. So
I hated that they were like, we're gonna announce the new Assassin's Creed, and then we got a cinematic trailer, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
So before I bought,
and then everyone was like, "Oh my god, look how great the graphics are!" It's like the system can't run that.
This is CGI, bro.
That's a computer CGI. That's like that's way above what's gonna actually be.
Before I bought Resident Evil 2 Remake, I wanted to see how the game looked and played. Kept hearing about it on Twitter and things of that nature, but I wanted to just watch a straight up trailer of it. And every time I looked up Resident Evil 2 Remake gameplay trailer, do it yourself. Go search it on YouTube. You know what you're gonna see? You're gonna see a whole bunch of trailers, and it's gonna be like 90-95% cutscenes. I hate that. And for the record, Resident Evil 2 Remake has great gameplay and it looks stellar. So I don't know why there's been so much priority on the cutscenes when the game itself looks and plays great. It's kind of a trend in the industry right now. I hate it.
Well, in the cutscenes, they do have much. It's all real-time cutscenes, but they do have higher LODs for like the character models. Have a lot more detail in the cutscenes.
I guess my problem with it is not about seeing how good the graphics engine is. It's about seeing how the game's gonna play, because I want to know if I want to play it. And
I want to see the actual game itself. I don't want to see a CGI trailer
but
that was
a
done
lot
in
of
an engine on some freaking crazy computer that can do way more than say the Switch is ever going to handle. Like,
or it took like 2 hours to process a 2 minute.
This is gonna sound very Nintendo fanboy. Oh my god, Nintendo YouTuber's gonna say something Nintendo fanboy. Oh, how unexpected!
How
but
shocking!
I feel like it's a little. It just seems contradictory to me that you have like other games that are running on much more powerful systems. Their trailers are much more cutscene heavy compared to Nintendo trailers, which are more gameplay heavy, even though they are on lesser hardware. Don't you feel like it's like a little contradictory? Like if you have a really good, powerful system that looks really good, why not just rely more on the gameplay that's already going to look great?
I think expectations are way higher on the other machines than it is for the Switch. Like people expect Switch games to not necessarily look bad, but definitely not look anywhere near what the other consoles are pushing out in terms of their just top AAA games. So I think they just have this expectation that their games have to look exactly like real life, and there can be absolutely no flaws, or it's not good enough.
And that probably could also go in, that whole mindset you're talking about, that probably could also relate to why we hear some developers call their games remasters when they're remakes, or vice versa, because they feel like their marketing has to match up to the expectation for the industry, or else their game will suffer.
Another thing I'd like to point out is, let's look at your PlayStation 4, your Xbox One. Who are the big players on that system for third parties?
Capcom.
Activision.
EA, Capcom, Square Enix,
Rockstar.
Which Rockstar,
Rockstar.
which Square Enix games, which of these games, like even Square Enix does lower quality stuff, but which ones do they really push on those systems? It's the ones that look as good as possible.
Super
So the
marketable.
problem is that they're all sitting there fighting over who has the prettiest looking trailer, because that's what the marketing is going to see, and that's what people are going to, well, it had the prettiest looking trailer, so it's the prettiest looking game.
100%. All next gen is gonna be, when they show off the games, it's gonna be trying to show off the best graphics, because
It's going to be
there's
ridiculous
already
trailers.
console wars for the Xbox Series X and PS5.
Looking forward to the
They showed off
Xbox
the
Direct.
games. We don't even know what the PS5 looks like, and there are already people being like, "Nah, the PS5 is way better." Like, bro, you haven't even seen it.
So
Let's see the two things run side by side first.
I think we're ready to move on towards the Nintendo delay direct thing, because I do think it relates to PS5 and Xbox a million.
Oh yeah.
But just to kind of put a little ribbon on the bow box thing, cherry on top of our little topic. I know my wording and phrasing is terribly off, but so we all agree then that Xenoblade Chronicles Definition is considered a remake or the remastered
remake.
plus.
Remake.
I think it's remade enough. I do think there are some assets that are remastered, but I think most of the game is remade, so I think it is a remake.
Okay.
And even the things that are remastered go far beyond what most remasters ever do. So
Yeah.
Generally speaking, if it was a remaster, they'd bring it in, they'd render it at a higher definition, and change the texture path on it.
You know, a good
They
point
did
is
more.
when Twilight Princess HD got announced, people thought it looked exactly like the original game, because remasters tend to look like what you thought the game used to look like.
Because
Like when you think back on how games look,
yeah,
you kind of look at them in a better light. That's kind of how Twilight Princess HD was. And then you have to compare them side by side to see the difference.
Man, imagine if the game
Chronicles Definitive Edition, you don't have to look side by side. You know instantly, like, oh yeah, this is definitely like
not for some people.
a new game.
Some people think it looks exactly the same.
I don't know. Maybe
I
they
think some
thought-
people
I
just
don't
didn't
know
play
what
the
they're looking
game.
at. I think
that
some people
also-
are salty.
That also goes back to people being like, Splatoon is just Splatoon 2 is just Splatoon 1.5. It's a different engine. Everything looks complete. Like, put those games side by side, and they're completely different. They play and
The new
handle
one
different.
looks so much
Everything,
better.
everything
Two
is
looks so
different.
I mean, there are people who still think that
remade, revamped everything. A ton of new assets. Even the old assets were completely redone. The maps were torn apart and remade. Like, no. But
Yeah.
like this is just where we are right now on the internet, where people want. And again, like a lot of times, it's not even people that are even playing or care about the game. It's just their way of putting a game down because console war, yay. And it's frustrating to see, and it's
I guess
That's just annoying.
with Xenoblade, I love this series, and I do not think it gets nearly enough love and attention as it deserves. Way too often do I find people saying, "Oh, this is a third-party game." It's not a third-party game; it's a Nintendo game. And I understand, like that in and of itself isn't necessarily a slight, but I think it is because it's not getting the acknowledgement that it deserves. Like, people are not considering Mollisoft a Nintendo developer when they very, very much are 100.
Yeah.
They're 100% Nintendo.
They look at it and they're like, anime, gross. Oh,
There's that element as well. Even though this, like, as far as RPGs go, Xenoblade is, I think it's the peak of RPGs.
Yeah.
Is Xenoblade.
It's so good.
And we're about to get the best one, the definitive edition of the best Xenoblade.
Those cutscenes are so good now in the new engine.
I just hope
With
that
the new
this
lighting.
game
Oh.
completely. I just hope it gets all the love and attention it deserves. Like, Xenoblade 2 did relatively well. I hope Xenoblade 1 just takes it to a whole other level. Because that's how important I think it is. I think it's, for me, like, my top Nintendo games are Mario, Zelda, Metroid, and Xenoblade. Like, in terms of, like, what I think are the most high quality experiences, That's where it is. So, do you guys know how I feel about Metroid Prime? I also think it doesn't get the love and attention it deserves. That's why it was one of the reasons why I'm so excited for Metroid Prime 4. Besides it, I think like Metroid Prime 4 could be like the best game ever made. Like that I have that level of expectation for this game, or at least close. Like it's gonna be right there. Xenoblade is not that far off in my opinion. So getting a remake of one of the best RPGs ever made, I think is like huge. So I'm looking forward to this, and I hope a lot of people give it a try. It just hasn't gotten that same level of attention. Like there isn't that awareness of this series compared to something like a Splatoon or Donkey Kong or Animal Crossing. But quality-wise, it's actually higher.
If you're looking for an RPG, specifically a JRPG, it's hard to find better. Like it's you can debate where it sits right now, but it's at the top. Like it might not be number one, but it's up there. Like they're very, very well done.
Yeah. The Joker, Kaimingo, you guys should if you like RPGs, play Xenoblade. You're gonna love it. You will cry.
So good.
And I'm not even joking.
No, yeah, you will cry.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Especially if you're into anime. You'll just like... Although Xenoblade 1's not very
I'm so
anime...
glad anime's like being more accepted now.
Yeah, there's still people who are very against it for some reason.
There's still a lot of people who just like hate on it for no reason.
If you didn't like the anime feel for Xenoblade 2, Xenoblade 1 is less anime-esque. I would say
the new renders are a little bit...
The designs are closer to it, but in terms of like the story itself, there's less anime-esque tropes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Xenoblade is great. I'm excited about it. Definitely consider it, guys. But anyway, so I've seen in the chat, Dumo, I saw you went and you corrected in the chat. But yeah, there's some people were asking if this is official news. No. This is not official news. I understand sometimes it's hard to sort of understand what the difference is. This is not officially coming from Nintendo, so it is rumor territory. That said, I do believe it. Basically, this report's coming from VentureBeat, and I'll go ahead and read to you what exactly was said. Here it is. Okay. All right, it's 2 paragraphs, so bear with me, guys. This is from Jeff Grubb on VentureBeat, the same guy who told us there would be an Nintendo Direct around March 26th. They got the Direct Mini. He also said there would be a Mini Direct the week before. I was right about that as well. This is a legitimate report from a legitimate website. They also talk about the Mario remasters as well, along with a whole bunch of other press sites, but that's besides the point for this particular topic. Anyway, here we go. Nintendo is telling partner developers it's not going to hold one of its Nintendo Direct video events in June. The publisher has had a June Direct to correspond with E3 every year since 2013, and before that it held annual stage presentations. But complications brought about from Japan's work-from-home order as part of its attempt to mitigate COVID-19 are forcing Nintendo to push back its schedule. Push back. Nintendo was putting together a June event, the company was lining up partners and was planning to unveil its first-party schedule for the rest of 2020. Oh man, that would have been so great. Yes. That included highlighting the Mario's franchise's 35th anniversary, which is going to celebrate with the release of some classic 3D Mario games on Switch, according to various reports. Various reports from a whole bunch of sites. Anyway, but now the company's far less certain. If it holds another Direct, it may not come until the very end of summer. So,
the very end of summer.
The way that's worded to me, that seems more like speculation. But point is, it doesn't look like it'll come in June. Mm-hmm. And that's a report. That is what's being heard from the industry, from industry insiders. That does not mean for sure will not happen, but it seems, I would say it's fairly unlikely at this point that there will be a standard E3 Nintendo Direct this June.
Yeah, it seems unlikely. I'm having a hard time seeing it being pushed all the way to like the end of August, though. But I feel like if you do have games that are going to be ready by the end of the year, why do we have to wait all the way till the end of August to show them off? Like, I could see them getting delayed until like early to mid-January, or not July, but I don't see why it would have to get delayed all the way up to like late August. or even early, I guess, September is still considered summer.
I think it's.
Now,
You go first, Jim.
the one thing I did the first time I saw this, I wish I could remember what website it was. I would have sent you the link. But they were talking about how we view, like, so as they were saying that the Nintendo Direct was going to be postponed, they were talking about how we view, as I was saying earlier, that Japan is this mecca of technology and they're so advanced. But apparently their business practices are still rather old school. They like the face-to-face, they like the meetings, they like being together in the room and doing things. They go to work, they go home. Apparently they're still running off fax machines and all this other stuff, and they weren't set up for this. We've heard in the past why handhelds are so loved in Japan. PCs aren't very common. They don't generally have a dedicated room with TVs, or they only have one. It's not like North America or even Europe where you'll have multiples. You don't have, like, again, PC isn't very big in Japan, so not everyone has computers. So it almost seems as though a lot of the computers are at work. You go to work, you use your computer, you go home, you use your phone. So if they're trying to set up and keep remote work going, and you need to get resources to people in their homes, do you send it to the game developers or do you send it to the people that are going to advertise the game? You'd send it to the game developers, because if they don't get to work and they're not getting their work done, there's no point in advertising it because the game isn't coming. Now, how true that is, I don't know. I don't have anyone I can ask or talk to on that, but that is what one article was saying. Again, I wish I could link it. But it does make sense. And on reading that, the first thing that popped into my head is like, oh my God, still inexcusable, but it makes so much sense that Nintendo would be like that if we just look at the NSO. They're not even remotely close to ready for these kind of remote work. They probably do
Could
a
be
lot
a
of
blessing
remote
in
work
disguise.
from studio to studio. Like Monolith probably does a ton of remote work from studio to studio.
But from home.
But
sure.
do they do it at home?
Right.
And so I could see it getting pushed back to the end of summer. For starters, they have to make sure the games are going to actually be released on time, because if it's not going to be ready, you don't want to announce it midsummer that it's going to come holiday season. Then holiday season comes, like, oh, maybe next year. Sorry, we missed it. You know, I know 2 months ago we said it'd be ready, but it's not. So maybe next year. So I can understand it, and I can see them pushing it back. And the longer they can delay, the more accurately they can give us the information. And yes, companies lie to us, but I don't think they want to especially on a regular basis, as like the main way of communicating with us, because it just builds distrust, and it doesn't bode well. Nintendo wants us.
I think they try to
rely on them.
Nintendo at least tries when they do have talk, like when we do see their presentations, they try to convey transparency, you know?
Yeah.
That is their effort. Like, I think the greatest example of that is when they had the Metroid Prime 4 restart announcement. That was full transparency. They were like, hey guys, so we had something working, we didn't think it really met up to the standards, and we decided to restart development. We know this sucks, we are sorry, but our mission is to make this the Metroid Prime that you guys have been waiting for. So that's why we're starting it. And
to that, I would say I expected the internet to burn down, and everyone was just like, no, take your time, we want a good game. I was like, wait, what? That's not what I was expecting.
There was disappointment, but understanding. It wasn't backlash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was like, no, like, it's like, oh, well, that sucks, but give us a good game.
The announcement for Breath of the Wild's delay was handled. We took it pretty well.
Because they also put out a video. They were very transparent with us, and they were clear. You know, and they didn't. It was like a presentation. It wasn't like, hey, let's just not say anything for a really long time, and let's just kind of like change the date on our next earnings report. You know, like, they came out and they had an announcement. They made it clear. And I think that's part of why people are a little restless with this whole direct situation. Because right now, we don't know what's going to happen in June, right? according to the report, there will not be E3 Direct during this time, but there usually is. And I think the interesting thing here is because there usually is, I think Nintendo probably should make an announcement about that. Like, I think they should tell us what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, because it's something that usually happens, I feel like it would be a good idea for them to set an expectation, because if the first and second week of June come around and there's nothing, I think people are going to be really upset, and I think that it would behoove Nintendo to at least do something about it.
I think the expectation is that most companies are going to do digital shows. That's kind of what a lot of companies
Right. What if the
is
report ends up being wrong?
Well, also at the same time, Nintendo said that they were going to do something in June during that E3 time slot. They said they were going to do something anyways. So they're going. I feel like they have to tell us something one way or another, whether they have to delay it or whatnot. But again, if they weren't set up for remote work,
planned.
Yeah, but if they weren't set up for remote work and working at home, I could see that being a problem. I could also see Sony being a bit of a problem if they are somewhat in the same page, where they are trying to do everything at work at face value. They don't have people working in their homes, and they don't have a ton of computers in their homes. Whereas I could see this being a really big benefit for Microsoft.
No, man, we're getting an Xbox Direct this month, so
they will have people at home with PCs that can do these kind of things. They do, and again, they do a lot of remote 100%. Things in Microsoft. So
and Microsoft can be like, oh, you need better internet, you need better PCs. Oh, okay, all right, I'll buy. We make all of that stuff.
Yeah, like and they got the money to do it too. Like they can. Right. It's like, Sony, you know what? We're just going to shift everything to work from home. Boom, done. I could see that happening.
I think Sony would have a pretty good advantage there too, especially over Nintendo. Nintendo just kind of does Nintendo, and it's pretty much it. Just the games, consoles, that's their thing.
Sony has more Western studios, though, don't they?
I think they do. They also, just in general, have more text knowledge, I guess, as far as like internet. Like they have much better internet for their consoles. They make TVs and stuff. Like Sony as a brand makes other kinds of technology that would be useful for working at home. Not
True, but it's
Microsoft
whether or not
also, but
it's whether or not their employees have it and how quickly they can get it to them.
Right. I think they could get it to them easier than Nintendo could, because Nintendo has like
probably
no contacts in that kind of industry, so they don't make any kind of stuff like that.
Oh, they got contacts, they just don't make it. I mean, they can always call up NVIDIA and be like, "What can you do for us?"
So,
we need help.
What do you guys think is gonna happen? Like, what are your guys' guts feeling then? Do you think this report is true? Or do you think this is, well, not so much that it's a lie, but do you think it's going to end up being true that there will not be an E3 Direct in June? Or a Summer Direct period in June?
I don't think that it will be in June.
You think? Or you well, I guess I didn't hear
I think it won't.
Okay.
I think it won't be in June. Just, I mean, like, look at the Direct that we got. It was a mini Direct, and it was like 3 months later than like what we thought was like, oh, it's crazy if they don't do it now.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but like, if you count the main direct as a main direct, that is the longest drought of all time between general directs. But the mini direct was not a main direct; it was a direct mini. So we're still going through the longest drought of all time it's ever going. And if the main direct for the year, the E3 Direct, is not happening in June, that's crazy. Like, how long are we gonna have to wait? It's
I think it's getting pushed back. The other thing you have to remember is we're talking about, like, are they equipped to work from home? And if they are, how well equipped are they? Because
that's a transition.
You're in the longest drought we've had. Think of how big this Direct is supposed to be. As an E3 Direct.
Yeah.
And we've gone the longest without a Direct in a very long time. How big of a project was this Direct supposed to be?
You know what I will say is that Sakurai himself actually mentioned something about working at home.
Yeah, I think it's going well for him, actually.
There's an article on it. Yeah, and I think he actually said it was going smoothly, but like a bit behind what they would have if they were working But I need to see an exact
So
quote.
my thing is that I think it is a transition, but I think they totally have the capability to get everyone set up to start or working from home. I don't think that's out of the question.
I think they can set them up. It's how quickly are they, and how quickly and how soon did they start? Because did they
Well,
expect
when did
this
the
to be done
stay-at-home
within
order-
a couple months?
When did the work from home
Or-
order happen in Japan?
Ooh,
I don't know.
February, March. Oh, might have been actually January. They would have been fairly early. They were,
Yeah, like I thought they got hit before us, you know?
yeah, like they were maybe a month or so before us. They were significantly before us.
Apparently they declared emergency in April.
In April 7th, Sakurai announced that they were working on Smash Ultimate from home.
But they were already going through social distancing before then. Their toilet paper cleared out like a month before ours did. Like all this stuff, like they were ahead of us for a lot of it. You also have to remember they're essentially bordering China.
Yeah.
So, you know, proximity, they would have been hit a lot sooner. Well,
All right,
they would
I
have
found
come
an
out
article.
a lot sooner.
Okay.
I found an article from the updated. This was from 4 days ago when Sakurai was talking about working from home. He says this isn't a Famitsu article, and these are not exact quotes here, but this is from Nintendo Everything. Put out this article that I'm reading, and they said, fortunately, things have been proceeding without any issues. He noted that in the column that working from home is going well for him and the team. He also joked about saving time on not having to commute to work, and he doesn't have to be in a sweaty office, is what he said. He also mentioned in the column that the team is recording footage with mics and capture cards. This allows them to send material to each other for development and keep things going well. So apparently they have computer setups, mics, capture cards.
Sounds like it gives them more work to do, though.
Yeah. He says that the situation is fine because they're working on DLC right now. However, hypothetically, these were circumstances when they were working on the early stage development of the game, it'd be very difficult. So he says it's going smoothly because since he's working on DLC, specifically.
It's also a smaller
and not
development
from the
team,
ground
but
up.
imagine what this would
Yeah.
mean for something like Breath of the Wild 2. You know,
Oh,
huge
they got
open
1,000
world.
people
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then again, that game probably already has some people working remotely because they hire, like, the original Breath of the Wild had a ton of people working, like, outsourced
Yeah,
stuff.
but studio to studio as opposed to home from home.
True.
We're talking like Monolith to
Yeah.
whatever studio is working on it, and then bring like that. That's
I guess the thing that would
I'm
bode
just
well.
saying the distance itself is...
Right. I think the
Yeah,
thing that would
not
bode
in
well
person.
for Breath of the Wild 2, though, just for my non-super... Well, I'm not a developer, so I don't know. But from what I understand, I feel like it would be at least not as bad in this final supposed year for Breath of the Wild 2. But if it was during the first or second year of development, then, you know, oh man, it's a lot harder. But at this point, you got to think that they are, if it was supposedly coming out this year, they'd be closing the deal on
At the
it.
very least,
You know?
if they're having trouble getting home setups, they have those setups at the office. They're not doing anything. They're just sitting there. So they might be able to take those back to their homes and use them there just, you know, like if they absolutely had to. It's not like they don't have equipment that they could send.
Right.
Now, I imagine most studios would prefer to get, you know, their own setups there so they don't have to, like, fucking tear down their office and build it back up once
it's also very
everything's
expensive though to buy them new setups versus sending them what they're
Especially
using.
when you have these development
True.
teams that have
Yeah.
a few hundred people. It's not just like 10 people. This
Mhm.
is a couple hundred. If we're talking about Breath of the Wild 2, we're
Yeah.
talking about a couple hundred people at least, right? So,
Oh, yeah. I think the original had, like, 300 at one time.
yeah.
So I don't know. It's one of those things where they have the systems, but who's tearing them down and sending them? How long is it taking? You know, it's not like they're going to send in an army of people to tear down the studio and
Right.
ship the stuff
Can't
there.
do
So
that.
that's all going to be delayed. It's not like a 1 or 2 day job. You're getting a few
Mhm.
systems down at a time. And again, you're sending systems that are going to have graphics cards in them, or they're gonna have to come out and be put back in. You have to make sure that those don't damage the motherboard during the shipping process. And this isn't a little, it's not a small thing by any means. Like this is pretty big, and you can have a lot of damaged parts in the shipping process, or you have to rely on the people to know how to put it together, which I would hope they do, but anything can happen.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'll say that at least like games that were close to being finished weren't delayed. Like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition came out pretty much exactly when we expected it to come out. And we sort of had an idea of when it was coming out, like pretty much in January, I think. Like we kind of knew it would probably come out around in May. Like we saw some listings, we thought it made sense given that it was a remake announced last September. It made sense, and that game has not been withheld. Granted, it was probably close to hitting gold status when everything started going to hell, but
yeah,
if they were able to pull that off, I feel like we could maybe still get something pretty big later in the year. But
they might have just foregone some of the polish at the end to get it out, or it might have also been one of those ones that they finished a couple months ago and they were sitting on, because Nintendo likes to do stuff like that. So that's the other thing, is you don't know what Nintendo actually has done, and they're sitting on while the team works on something else. So that's the other thing that could save them in this.
Yeah,
but I don't know, because the Switch has been
I
firing
agree
stuff out.
with that statement, but I also want to provide a devil's advocate, because if you look at the different trailers we've gone for Xenoblade Chronicles as we've gone each one, it does look like we're seeing later versions of the actual game. Like I said, the Japanese trailer seems like to be really further along than what we got even in the Direct Mini. So to me, that implies that
I'm not saying at all that there won't be a fairly large amount of polish, because I don't think Nintendo would put out a game that they weren't comfortable with. Be like, oh, well, you know what? We need to make some money. Just shove this on the shelf. And I don't think Monolith would enjoy that. And Monolith gets a lot of free
I feel like the game was ready
from Nintendo. So I feel like it's going to have the polish. I just feel like there maybe either it was already done for a little bit, or they are skipping out on a very little bit of the final polish. Like it's definitely good enough to go, but they could touch it up a little bit more. And that'd be the only difference. Not something we would ever actually see, because that would be about the stage that they would be in at the very end.
I guess we'll find out when we get the game.
Yeah.
I hope it's fully polished, but we'll see. Yeah.
I don't think you'd see the difference if it's like.
Yeah.
If they're literally tweaking the smallest, most minute things, you're never going to notice, especially in a playthrough.
Yeah. So let's assume there's no E3 Direct this June, which I think we all agree there probably won't be. What will Nintendo do in its place? Will they do anything? Will they make any sort of announcement at all? I'll wait. I'll let you guys go first, and I'll tell you guys what I have sort of talked. But if you're watching my videos, you pretty much already know what I'm going to say. But go on.
You want to start, Brian?
Didn't they say that the ARMS character is going to be shown off?
Yes.
Or released by June?
June.
Or,
yeah.
Sometime in June. Yeah.
Yeah. That's still a thing.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't really know what they would do. I think they should do something, because all we've had in this huge amount of time is the Direct Mini, and then along with getting
they gotta do something. I agree.
Direct delayed till possibly like the end of March or the end of August. I mean.
Yeah.
We need something.
Right.
I feel like they give us very little.
I think
it's getting delayed. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I said I'll let you guys go first. I'm holding back.
All right. So I think it's getting delayed till probably closer to the end of summer. They might not wait till like as far back in summer as possible. I guess we got to see something with the Smash character. I feel like they're gonna have to do something for Mario's 35th anniversary, but again, we've seen other big anniversaries come and go with companies, and they just completely ignore or give us something ridiculously dumb.
I don't
that no
think
one cares
anniversaries
about.
are that important
all the time.
So
I wouldn't believe it if it weren't for these several reports from different legitimate absolutely trusted press sites, I would be like, yeah, I mean, maybe something, but I don't expect everything Mario. No.
And at the same time, it's like at 35, like, why not just hold off
What's
till
so
the
special
40?
about 35?
Like, why not 40?
Understand.
Why not wait till 50? You know, like
Right.
it's like,
It
why
definitely feels
35?
like a 10.
You know, I can see 10s, I can see 5, 10, I can see 20, I can see 30, 40. 35 just seems like a weird one for
Maybe
me.
the Mario Remaster thing is an idea that came up because of of it being a slow Nintendo year. Maybe it goes back to what you were saying, Dumo, how they might just have a lot of stuff that's just sort of done and ready, you know? And the
It could have been sitting.
reason why they're now all of a sudden turning the 35th anniversary into a major Mario year is because most of those major Mario games are going to be repurposed content that was perhaps somewhat ready, or if not entirely ready. And that's what we're going to be getting this year. It could mean that the Mario Remasters is the big holiday game, which would disappoint me because I want a new game. But you know, I take what we can get, of course. And I'm gonna love the Mario Remasters. It goes back to what I've been complaining about every single week. If I don't get Breath of the Wild 2, I will shed a tear. But
what's stopping them from making the remasters a couple years ago? As they're bringing them up, they just redo everything with 4K textures, and then whatever system they release it on finally, because they need it in an emergency, they just scale back the textures and the models and then run it on the engine however they manage to get it running on the system. It has something ready to go. It's massive. People are going to love it, and they have something in case of an emergency. If, say, Breath of the Wild 2 goes horribly wrong and misses the year, and Metroid Prime 4 misses the year, and they're like, oh god, we have nothing for holiday. You know, all of a sudden it's like, wow, we have this massive
well,
Mario
I mean,
remaster.
hopefully it's pretty I just hope the remasters are pretty significant. We'll see.
Honestly, I mean, I commented on this new video, but the only one that really needs more than a remaster is Mario 64. Because the other games, you put those in the emulator, they look great. And just at 1080p, like, even if you don't change literally anything, but just put in 1080p, they look great.
I think Sunshine needs a little bit more work, but I agree with you. Obviously, 64 is so far behind that it needs to be remade in order for it to really measure up. It needs to be remade.
It needs better controls, honestly, a way better camera, completely new assets. It needs to be a lot less slippery. I don't know why Mario's wearing freaking soap on his shoes in that game.
It's training.
But there's definitely a lot of quality of life changes that need to be done. It just needs to be completely redone.
Yeah, so I think that's one they could have had sitting there ready to go for a rainy day, and this could be the rainy day.
And speaking of rainy days and things being ready to go, every day is a rainy day for Metroid fans. So, the idea has been that Prime Trilogy has just been sitting on a shelf, just waiting to go.
Mm-hmm.
Given the situation, what if we finally get Metroid Prime Trilogy?
It'd be nice.
You know my stance on it.
The thing is, my stance has become your stance. I agree.
It's gonna come the beginning of the year that Metroid Prime 4 lands for the holiday season, to have the two feed off each other for hype and for sales. However, on your point, yeah, I could see it. If they if they're desperate and they have nothing and they're like, this is sitting on the shelf waiting, release it now. We have to have something holiday.
What if let's meet each other in the middle? Like, I understand your point, coming out, say, January, and Metroid Prime 4 coming out in, like, October or December. I see that. But
I don't really see that.
What if instead it comes, like, instead of it being like a 10-month gap, it's more like a 15-month gap, you know? Like, how much of a difference does that really make? You could still have Prime 4 come out in this latter half of this year. I mean, Prime Trilogy HD, not Prime 4, in the latter half of this year. And that could still help to build up the hype cycle leading into Prime 4, hypothetically, for holiday 2021. Assuming that that's a target date that they think they could actually hit.
In my mind, it's much more often that we see like collections and like remastered collections and stuff a year or two before the new game, at least. Like, I don't think we really hardly ever see a remake or remaster of a game and then the sequel to it in the same year. Like, that just doesn't really happen. You don't really need them that close together.
Well, the one thing that I would say to kind of counter that a little bit is that Nintendo's been doing that with phone games recently. They're not remasters, not remakes or anything, but
phone games
they
are
love,
a lot different, though. It's
but
like
they
a
like,
completely separate platform for them.
but they build the hype and then they get big sales. They saw it with Pokemon. They saw it, not quite as much with Animal Crossing, but again, Animal Crossing did well. Fire Emblem, the mobile game, did a lot to
Actually,
build hype for Fire Emblem.
There's an idea. That's a good idea, guys. We should get a Metroid mobile game.
Oh,
Like,
God.
No, come on, think about it, though. What if it's like an on-rails shooter? Like an on-rails, like, alien shooter on your phone? That wouldn't be that bad. That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
Complete with
It'd be
loot
okay.
boxes.
I mean, all Nintendo mobile games are okay, because mobile games in general are
Hey,
okay.
I'm just saying, like, it's a mobile game, sure. You know, there's only so much that can be done when it's a mobile game, but
that's why I also think it's very different from the remakes, because the remakes play like the new game's gonna play. Obviously, the new game's not gonna play exactly the same.
Dude, but
mobile games don't really play anything.
I'm not
like
sold on this Metroid mobile
games.
game. I'm sold. It's happening. It's real. I just think it can do. I don't. I guess the thing is that what makes money on mobile are like RPGs, like gacha games. So if they don't see a clear way to design Metroid as a gacha game, then they probably won't do it. But otherwise, I feel like it's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see the monetization working well for them. And
that's really, and that's probably, and that's the sole purpose of mobile. It's just to make money. Like, there is the artistry of mobile games is not really the same level as when it comes to these other games. Yes, it's all a business, but while it's all a business, the developers, the designers, when they make these games, make no mistake, there is like an artistic passion and urge that drives them forward to create these games. It's not just, hey, let's make money and get paid. Obviously, that's an element, a strong element, but there is like an artistic element here as well. It's not just all money. My point simply being that with mobile games, it's kind of more of, hey, we should make a mobile game because this will make a lot of money, not because this is the best way to convey our vision of an amazing game.
Yeah, the mobile games are definitely more leaned towards like, how can we make some extra money?
Yeah,
it's a lot more focused on that. I mean, you can just look at Mario Kart. Just look at Mario Kart. That's all you need to know. Just look at Mario Kart. You look at it, and you're just like, yep. I don't even need to explain why. I just have to say, look at Mario Kart. Yeah, everybody knows why.
I see an interesting point here from Nexus. Nexus Academy. Bayo 1 and 2 released 3 years and counting before Bayo 3, so it wouldn't be impossible to get Prime Trilogy HD over a year before Prime 4.
Not impossible at all.
No.
My stance is my stance, and I've been.
Yeah, well,
I've been holding on that, and again, they've been seeing a lot of benefit, and they've actually talked about it in meetings where they're seeing having something like a mobile game within the same general area as the release has really been driving their sales, and they've really enjoyed that. So my expectation, again, and I could be wrong. I'm not going to say that I'm right and everyone else is wrong. I'm just like that. My expectation is that's what's going to happen. Is Prime Trilogy comes out the beginning, the January, February of the year that Prime 4 is going to be the major release for holiday. The only thing that makes me change that at this point in time is I could definitely see them using Prime Trilogy if it's sitting on the shelf for a time where we don't have a holiday game. They need something. Prime Trilogy would be a pretty good holiday.
People will be really excited about that. And it would sell probably really well, given the whole circumstance.
I think it would make more sense to release it now than to release it in the same year as Prime 4, because you have 3 games. Just looking at it from a normal casual consumer, they're going to look at this, they're going to see 3 remade games. and they're gonna see, oh, but there's the brand new game. They're gonna say, I don't really know this series. There's a brand new one coming that I can jump into. I'm not gonna be able to finish 3 games. The average consumer is not gonna be able to finish 3 full games in the span of even a year.
I often run into this where I have friends or people like, hey, so I finished this game already. And they're like, yeah, I'm still on it. Hey, so I just finished this game. How you like? I'll beat like 4 or 5 games over the course of a couple of months, and then someone will still be playing the same game, and they've been playing it for an extended period of time. And that's like, there's just different. I am a hardcore gamer. Most people are not hardcore gamers. The masses are not hardcore gamers. So I kind of understand your point, Brandon. But given that it's a trilogy, maybe a 9-month window is not.
Yeah.
I
would
would
take
also
them all 9 months to play
longer.
that, and then the very next game that they play is going to be another Metroid Prime game.
The other thing you got to remember.
No, I've played enough Metroid Prime. I want to move on to another game.
Messing up words here. One other thing I would like to point out is that a lot of people aren't going to pick up the trilogy off the bat. You're going to see a lot of people buy into the hype of 4, love 4, and then look back at trilogy.
True.
Because we already see that.
They're
going
to sort
of
piggyback off
all
each
the
other.
time with actually Monster Hunter World and Iceborne. We're constantly seeing people come into the Generations Ultimate community that have played those. They're out of content or just kind of burning out, and they're like, well, let me check out an older game.
Yeah.
So that's kind of more what I expect. So to me, it is going to be the more hardcore gamers that are going
to your point, though. I can see the same
start.
happening with Xenoblade. Like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is coming out. I could see Xenoblade 2 sales picking up because of it, and I think they will. People who play Xenoblade 2 are going to want to try Xenoblade 1, and vice versa. So
I think a lot of people because again, Xenoblade 1 didn't sell what Xenoblade 2 did. It didn't have the hype it did. So, and 2 was fantastic. So people see 2 and they love 2. So it's like, and then they hear all these people talking about how 1 was so much better and 2 was trash. Like, but I love 2. Now I need to see what 1 looks like because 1 was so apparently so much better. So I have to go see that. And
I think people are going to play it, and I think it's going to be a more polished game. And I think that because Xenoblade 1 is not as blatantly anime-esque, the anime haters may give it a try. So I guess it may be a little bit more mainstream from that in that regard. I mean, really what held back Xenoblade 2 was just polish, I think. Like, some of the bosses were a little awkward, and the graphical engine was a little all over the place. But in terms of...
It was the biggest thing that held them back, in my opinion, there's 2 main things. One was the community and people being on the bandwagon of everything looks terrible on Switch. We need to hate everything on Switch. Switch is doing too well. I hate it. And the second one is that it was the dev team was 25 people from Monolith Soft, and then everything else was outsourced with them putting it together.
They really rushed that.
I don't think it was overly rushed. I think it was just they didn't have resources.
Not so rushed that the game was broken and bad.
Everything was outsourced, so that's why like your menus, they feel
it wasn't
like
consistent.
People made the menus. They're not as cohesive. They actually have different buttons doing the same thing in different menus because it was designed by different people. It was designed in different studios. Like everything was outsourced, and I'm blown away at how good the game was for how few people that were on the core team making it is just
they made
phenomenal.
it in like 2 years too.
Yeah, like I can't imagine that. And again, then we start talking about like Xenoblade 1 and how great it was. We talk about
Torna had polish, and that just was
the next game from Monolith is supposed to be a new IP, medieval IP.
Yeah, but what we're all waiting for.
I want to see what their entire studio together can do on a current gen game, not like
Xenoblade
25
Chronicles
people.
3 is happening. Xenoblade Chronicles 3
going to
is
happen.
happening.
Is it in production right now?
I think
that's a good question.
I think they're at least getting ready. It's just a theory.
They said back in 2018 that they were currently working on this new IP that they're talking
and that
about.
I expect that to come out before Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But
Monolith is a big studio too. Like
they're huge.
And
they're
what is
going to work on multiple
Nintendo
projects.
using the extra studio for right now?
They're definitely
Breath of
working
the
on Breath of the Wild.
The second
That's
studio,
already
like
that's
they
actually
could be doing
confirmed.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
Hundred
But
percent, there's a
what if
large
they
group
only
of
have
them
a
doing
like partial dedicated to Breath of the Wild, because the
They have
engine
5
is for the most part
studios.
done. They're
Mhm.
they're going to be tweaking stuff in the engine, tweaking stuff graphically,
They're
and then
just
a lot
probably
of it's going to
helping with
be
the
story based. Like you have a lot of the components there. That's why you can do a fast turnaround. But then that would also free up a ton of people from Monolith to work on a second
And
game.
they've been hiring so many people. Their studio is so much bigger. They could have like the same amount of people working Breath of the Wild and have just so many more people now. But I do think they don't need as many people for Monolith. I think they're still, especially with them working at home, they might need more now, just more help in general. But as far as like as you're talking about, like a lot of the engine stuff is done. So, but I do expect them to. Monolith is very good at making like assets and very good at making like huge worlds and things like that. And I think Breath of the Wild 2 world will feel a lot different. So I think they'll help in that area. So I think there's still gonna be a ton of that to help with, but I don't think it'll be as many. And I definitely think the next project will have a much bigger development team, and they've already been working on it longer than they did for the entire development of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So
Yeah. See, I'm really curious to see what exactly is going on in Breath of the Wild 2, because one of the big things they said is like Aonuma said it would be a shame to put all this time and effort into this wonderful world and then never use it again and not get more use out of it. So it's like, is it like how much of a new world are they actually doing for Breath of the Wild 2? Are they
I think they're taking the world and just
what exactly? They're not going to do a completely new world, but are we going to see?
Yeah, obviously.
Like, so it's just a really big question to see what they're doing with it and how much of it gets reused. And
the thing is, how often do
are they going to reuse the entire world and then do other things on top of that, or is it just going to be, this a ton of new stuff? Is it going to be completely?
I expect the world to be a lot denser. I expect the map to extend out a little bit more. Not like a whole bunch more, but a little bit more. Like the borders, I think, will be expanded. And I think there's going to be a lot more verticality. Like there was already a lot of verticality in Breath of the Wild, but like underground, underwater. Brandon, you've always talked about underwater.
I expect sub.
Oh, yeah. A lot of subterranean stuff.
In Breath of the Wild as well that just kind of have nothing there. Like the canyon where that big like temple is where all the guardians are. That whole canyon, like most of it's just completely empty.
Yeah. So I got an ad here in the chat, and then I'm gonna actually tell you guys what I think is gonna happen for this summer. So Alexander added me. Actually, Xenoblade is more probable to get one than Metroid, a spiritual sequel like how FE Heroes is to Fire Emblem.
Huh.
Yeah, and actually he went on. However, it'd be more similar to Dragalia than Fire Emblem Heroes because of Xenoblade ARPG nature and being a tiny main cast type of RPG instead of an army like Fire Emblem Heroes. I see what you mean. I could definitely see like a Xenoblade Dragalia Lost kind of game. It totally could do that, 100%, absolutely. Especially if like they use like blades, like that's totally gotcha right there.
They got the blades.
Yeah. That was one thing I always thought with Xenoblade 2 is like they could have easily made this like it's built to be a microtransaction game and they just didn't.
Honestly, that's one of my least favorite aspects of Xenoblade 2, and I'm glad Torna didn't have that.
Yeah, it's not something I loved about it. I mean, I got a few and that was it. They would have done. I mean, maybe I could have done more Blade quests, and maybe when I go into New Game Plus, I'll do that and I'll enjoy it a little bit more. But that it was something that I didn't care that much about either. But
I understand the purpose of it and why they did it was so that everyone would have a different playthrough. Like everyone would have a different playthrough. But at the same time, I really don't like luck mechanics. I don't care about
having a different game. I don't care about having a different playthrough. I want one really solid, well-constructed, really polished playthrough, not one that's different every single time. Like I don't care about playing the game and having it feel slightly different every time. Like I just want one really well-made, really polished experience. Unless it's gonna be like something like Breath of the Wild, where that kind of feels different for every experience, just because you can go anywhere, but everything's still the same. It's just when you get to that part.
See, I'm okay with either one. It's just have it luck based as to which main blades you get, like which rare blades you get, and then have a way to just unlock them without grinding and open and how slow to open.
Even like the best crystals, or what were they called?
Legendary or something.
Yeah, like legendary
Yeah.
blades. Yeah.
Legendary cores.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you could get it was possible.
You could
to
still
get
get
just
a
normal
basic one.
blades,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is stupid. That's just stupid. Like,
Hey, at least you
no,
weren't
that's
paying
okay.
for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just like at that point, it's like if you're not gonna put microtransactions, why is this even a thing? Like, why is it so hard to get these rare blades?
I was fine with it in the playthrough, but then afterwards trying to unlock everything, I burnt out on getting legendary crystals. Like
I didn't
no.
even bother. Like, I had crystals in my inventory, and most of the time I just never even did anything with them because I didn't care.
And then just again,
Really
going through
curious.
the nightmare of the menus of getting rid of common blades that I didn't want just to make room so I could open crystals for more common blades that I didn't want.
Oh my god, yeah, that was
Oh
horrible.
boy.
The game really was good though. Like don't like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it's just
fantastic
a
game.
part that was.
Look, we can nitpick at any game in existence. Breath of the Wild is arguably one of the greatest games ever made, and Brandon and I can go hours just
Yeah,
talk about
it's
things we want
so
better.
long, just
We've done it.
trash
We've already
talking.
done it. Yeah. But anyway, just going back to the topic though. So this is what I think is going to happen for the summer. We got a Best Buy listing for Super Mario 3D World. Before that listing even came up, I was already predicting that Super Mario 3D World was going to be a summer game. Game's already made.
Mhm.
It's going to be pretty easy for Nintendo to put out a port for 3D World Deluxe. I don't think that's going to be too crazy. Considering there's already listings for it, I think that is suggestive that it may be around the corner. So my speculation is that along with the ARMS Smash DLC and the Pokemon DLC in June, it wouldn't shock me if we get an announcement within the next couple of months about a 3D World game to come out in, say, July. And I also think that Bravely Default 2 might also not be that far away. If you look at the timeline, Octopath Traveler... When did the demo for Octopath Traveler came out? If I remember correctly, it came out around the same time as this demo we got for Bravely Default 2. I feel like they're on a similar timeline here. So it wouldn't shock me if if Bravely Default 2, they were the same developers. They just that Octopath Traveler was their RPG in 2018, Bravely Default 2 is their RPG this year. It wouldn't shock me if Bravely Default 2 ends up being a late summer game, because that's exactly what happened with Octopath Traveler. It actually came out in July of 2018. Now, given the whole COVID situation, it may not come out in July, but it wouldn't shock me if it comes out, say, August or early September. At the latest, I would say.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm pegging it.
The demo was released September 13th.
Oh, it was even farther back.
It was a lot further back.
Yeah, the demo was a long ways because they went through everything from the demo and they addressed
Changed a lot.
everything. They said
Yeah.
they went through everything and they tried to address as much as they could.
So do you think?
Square
So do you think
doing that?
Bravely Default 2 will take a lot longer then?
I think
depends on how much
Bravely Default
feedback.
2 is less of a feedback game just because it's not like a brand new.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And I guess the thing is, if
Concepts.
they're already at a feedback stage, they're probably not that far off from being done either.
And they probably already had feedback from the first game.
Yeah.
So then it
Yeah,
just
I mean they've had 2 games.
And
so
actually,
they're
Daemon X
ready.
Machina, that game, there was E3, and then there was a demo that came out where it gave feedback, and then it came out like a couple months later. So
yeah, it was. I think it was pretty quick.
So that one had a much quicker
Yeah,
turnaround
they
when
did
it
actually
came.
fix a lot of things.
They did quick a lot of things. It still wasn't good though.
I hear some people actually really like it. I never gave it a chance because after that demo I was like, no.
It's not worth. Not.
But,
Is it $60?
It's too much.
It's too much.
Too much money.
Yeah.
Can't afford
So for that reason, it did not impress me enough to want to spend $60 on it.
I spent 10 bucks.
$10. Yeah, I'll give it a 10. Yeah.
Maybe 20.
I don't know if it'll ever get that low, but we'll see. But anyway, so my thinking is that 3D World could be a summer title. I wouldn't be shocked if that's announced relatively soon. And maybe instead of getting the Summer Direct, we get a Mario Anniversary Nintendo Direct where they announce Mario plans throughout the year. Now, here's the thing. This Mario Direct, this whole idea I have of it is contingent upon the Mario games not being the biggest holiday release for the year.
Yep,
So in
that's
other
my
words,
thoughts.
if we get a Mario Direct like in June or sometime this month, then to me, that would be a pseudo confirmation that Breath of the Wild 2 is still on, baby. So the moment I see a Mario Direct, I'm gonna be screaming Zelda, because that I'm gonna make those connections. Just assume that, hey, that means that their big holiday game is not that, unless. The only other way I could see a Mario Direct happening and Zelda not being the game, unless there, well, two things. One, there's just something else we're not considering at all. There'll be a big, huge holiday game that was ready, that they haven't announced yet. Or the Mario Direct will replace the E3 Direct, because all they have is Mario. Which so it's one or the other. I'm gonna say the more likely situation is that,
in my mind, the only reason you would ever do a Mario Direct is if you have a whole other list of games, like major games, coming for a normal Direct.
Say it again?
My only thing, if you have a Mario Direct, I think you have to have another, like, Direct after that, showing off 2020 games, because I don't think it would be all just Mario. I think you have to have enough other stuff to make an entire other presentation. Another major Direct of stuff coming out.
Yeah.
Because otherwise...
Yeah, so what may happen
otherwise,
instead...
Because you're going to have another Direct, for sure, 100%. There's not just going to be a Mario Direct and a Direct Mini, and that's all we get for 2020. I mean, maybe, but I really doubt that.
Hey, come on. Negativity.
I think if they do a Mario... If you're going to do a separate Mario Direct and you don't have another, like, Direct plan that's good enough, why wouldn't you just wait to talk about Mario when you have that Direct? So it's actually
what I could see happening then
Direct.
is that we get a trailer announcement of Super Mario 3D World. Like, if that's going to be a summer release, like, you just announced that and then save the other Mario announcements for later on.
They could do that. Maybe hint that there's other things coming for the 35th anniversary. Wouldn't say
Yeah.
what it is.
And I guess I like your point, because if there's a Mario Direct, it's implicit that they still have a lot of stuff to show off in another Direct later in the year. And given the circumstance, maybe they don't, you know? So it's either A, we get a Mario Direct, I don't know.
The other question is, do they just, if things aren't getting better in the world, do they just straight up cancel it? Because they don't like to they don't like to put out some sort of a Direct. We've already seen it canceled with the earthquake.
Yeah.
They don't like to put out a Direct and advertise themselves when something like traumatic is going on in the world and in Japan.
But that's only for a few weeks. Like, we're talking about the whole year here.
At some point, you have to talk about it. They're still a business. They can't just be like, oh, well, world's kind of bad, so we're just not going to
release anything.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because they could also just release trailers here and there. They can, like, they have lots of options. I feel like they have to. I feel like they've been gearing up for a massive E3 Direct. So I feel like it's got to come.
They've been the leaders of E3 for a while. Like, they've had the best presentation for several years.
As a salty Nintendo fan, I've been seeing talk of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, and I'm like, Jesus, both Sony and Microsoft, they're just, doesn't matter, man. They're gonna have their years. They're gonna still push their new systems and show off their games. And I'm just here thinking, man, what in the world is Nintendo doing? Like, you don't need to release a new system, just show me some games. So
what's Sony doing right now, though?
All I know is that PS5 is coming.
Secretive.
All I know is that PS5 is coming. I have heard that they're gonna have limited
PS5,
stock.
There's some speculation. Do they have a big long list?
But we got the controller reveal
with a lot of games. Are they like? We don't even know.
We don't know.
I guess game-wise, we don't really know.
Games till Thursday.
No, but supposedly they have games. What games? We'll see. But they are at least pushing forward with advertising their new systems, and they are both coming out this year.
Yeah.
So my point simply
that's
being
also
is that
a lot of money put into that.
Yeah.
Like they basically trashed the last year of sales to be able to push this. Like I feel like the company would probably be financially really, really hard off.
I also think it's kind of a game of chicken. because
always.
if one of them drops out, the other one might just be like, it doesn't matter how much we have to sacrifice to get this launch, we're getting it on time and we'll be the first. So it's like, unless both of them drop out, neither of them are going to.
They're also in a game of chicken to see who announces what first, because they want both of them want to be the second one to announce the price, because whatever the price is, they're just going to undercut it. Or they're going to match it, because they can't really undercut it without losing too much. But they don't want to be like the system that's it's going to be a $600 system. They're going to be like, we're $550.
The other issue is that people don't have that much money right now.
Features they put out, because sometimes they'll change things. Like when the original Xbox One came out, they changed a whole bunch of stuff to be more like the PlayStation 4, because that's what people were really wanting, and PlayStation was using all those things against them, so they had to change it. So they also want to see if anybody's going to slip up and make some kind of mistake the public doesn't like, and then they can just feed off it.
Man, Nintendo's in such a good place to not really be dealing with that.
Yeah, I mean, at least they don't have that pressure where they have to do that. It's all like when they had that announcement, we're like, hey, we're not gonna have any systems this year, new revisions. Like they took themselves out of that race, and they're not gonna have any big failings because of it. I just hope. I mean, they're gonna have games. It may just be all remasters this year, but there still will be games. So I mean, and I guess some remasters that come to mind, obviously 3D World Deluxe, the Mario remasters, Metro Prime Trilogy HD, but also Pikmin 3. That's another thing that could come out this year. It's rumored to be coming out. So that could all come out this year, and I'd be okay with that. That'd be fun. I'd be a little disappointed because I want Breath of the Wild 2, but you know.
Skyward Sword HD instead, baby. Definitely a good replacement.
Is it? Not a good replacement. Now, let me ask you guys this question though. Do you think Nintendo would be okay with that strategy? Like, let's hypothetically say.
I mean, if they had to, yeah, 100%.
If literally the only games that come out for the rest of this year are not even okay, maybe Paper Mario is the one new game. So you get Paper Mario, Pikmin 3 port, 3D World port, Mario remasters, Metro Prime Trilogy HD, and that's it. Like, that's your lineup. Will Nintendo do that? Like, is that something Nintendo will be like, hey, you know what? I think we can get away with this.
I mean, I don't think they would do that unless they had to.
It would mean the only
but if they had to, I think they would.
Totally.
Like,
if they have to make a year happen, they're gonna make it happen. Although I feel like they could get away with even less, especially with the way things are going right now. If they
like, what if they only have one big release every 2 months? So let's say,
maybe fine.
3D World Deluxe comes out in July, and then we wait until September, and that's Bravely
a big release now.
Bravely Default 2 is September. I'm being like super pessimistic here. Like, I'm just 3D World Deluxe is a no buy for me. But Bravely Default 2 is September, and then that brings us to maybe the end of the year. That would be bad. I don't know. No, I don't think it could be that bad. No, I don't think that. I don't believe that. Hard to say though.
I don't think it will, but they could get away with it, especially with the way things are going right now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine though?
Especially if at some point in time during the year they gave us a trailer, a cinematic trailer even, of something big that we actually really want.
Just to see it.
Just to see that, yes, we're making progress. Yes, this
still
exists.
Well, you know, that's at least something they could do. Like, this year they give us Prime Trilogy and the Mario remasters, but maybe they still have that big E3 Direct, and they give us a teaser trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 and Metro Prime 4, and they both say they're both coming out 2021.
We're going to see Breath of the Wild again this year, even if it doesn't come out this year. I think 100% we'll see it again.
I hope
I mean, they showed it last E3. They're not going to just not show it. I mean, they did.
I think they can. I think my thing is, I think Nintendo could not show it if it's not coming out this year. Like, they can. They don't need to show it if it's not coming out this year. Like, I'd like them to, but I'm just saying they wouldn't need to.
I definitely think they would show it off.
I think it makes sense to, because that would definitely hype people up.
to show off.
Like Smash DLC is cool, but you're running out of the like Smash keeps things hype, but that's gonna slowly dwindle. You know, like you can't rely on a Smash announcement to hype everyone up every direct.
And just talk about things that are coming later.
And not have something that's super exciting.
They had nothing.
They could. I feel like they're gonna have something, even if they have to push it back, even if if the direct is pushed back till like end of August, early September, and they talk about things, it's like, yes, it's coming, but it's gonna be like March. Like the next big game is going, like we have these couple of things that aren't amazing, and what we wanted for holiday is getting pushed back till March. I think people would still be on board.
100%.
I think people wouldn't be happy, but they'd understand. Like,
if Breath of the Wild anyways, you got what I mean. Planned for this year, like this holiday, a delay on that plan due to COVID-19, I don't think would be later than like March or April of next year. I don't think we'd have to wait all the way till holiday 2021 if it was planned to come out this year and gets delayed.
No, I don't think so, especially since it's kind of a barren time in the year. We've seen games perform really well. And again, Breath of the Wild, March 3rd.
Good old March, yeah.
You know, that killed it. But you know, it's I don't know, and we don't like it. They're transparent. We've seen in the past when Nintendo is transparent with us, it usually it's disappointing, but it's usually taken rather well by the community versus when they're kind of a little bit like wishy-washy on things and people just flip
the whole
out.
Wii U era where they tried to pretend they had stuff, but they really had like nothing.
You know, and if they honestly, if at the again beginning of September, say they do the direct and like, this is what we had planned, but you know, Breath of the Wild 2 is getting pushed back until March, but here's a release date for Breath of the Wild 2. I think a lot of people would be happy just to have a date at this point and have it not just be like, oh well, is it this year, is it next year, is it the year at, like where is this falling? Just to have a date would make people really happy, especially if there was transparency involved in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Again, I don't think people would be happy to not be getting it this year.
Yeah.
But I feel it would go over really well and people would be happy to just finally have a date or a window.
And the good thing is you can't blame Nintendo, otherwise you look like a terrible person.
Yeah. But I mean, when I think about it though, I just don't think, I have a hard time believing that this entire year is just going to be a barren wasteland. As we talked about earlier in the podcast, like, sure, there's going to be some delays. It's going to make it hard to do development, but how much of a delay we're talking about here? I think at most 3 months. So, you know, we're going through a slow period right now. Was this slow period already going to happen before the whole pandemic? Or are we going through a slow period right now because of the pandemic? I think, you know, things are starting to kind of return back to normal already, at least for me. Like, my jobs, you know, we're have a return, the whole, like, stay-at-home order.
Yes.
Yeah, at least in America.
Other places in the world, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. But I just feel like we're hitting the summer. Supposedly the summer may clean things up a little bit. The stay-at-home order, at least in my area, is going to be ending on the 7th. We're going to go into the yellow territory. So obviously I think there'll be social distancing, things of that nature. But for example, we'll technically be allowed to go out and hang out with people.
Right.
Just keeping it like a smaller community though. And like, for example, we're hearing that the NBA is going to start trying to do workouts on May 8th, which means that we may actually start seeing some NBA games by June, which would be really cool. Point being is that it does look like there is a light at the end of the tunnel at this point. It does look like we're starting to come out of it. Now, there may be a bit of a regression too, because once people start exploring a little bit more, then it starts spreading some more again. But hopefully that doesn't really happen. Fingers crossed.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
But Japan's actually not in terrible shape. They didn't suffer a lot of fatalities. Their cases don't seem to be going up from what I can tell, and I just looked now, but what is kind of really going to be telling is that I don't believe their cases have been skyrocketing lately. The deaths haven't really been going up, but the recovered is still fairly low. I could see that having a nice little boost in the next couple weeks to months, like next couple weeks to the next month, just as a lot of cases that were confirmed can now be confirmed to have been recovered. And if they end up with a lot of recovered and cases are finally being cleared up where they don't have active cases, I could see things starting to relax a little bit. Whereas if they have a lot of outstanding cases, they don't want to relax things and then have the outstanding cases end up infecting people. So it's
unless you're American,
we don't know how it's all going to go.
If you're American, then apparently it doesn't matter either way. More cases, less cases, who cares?
Economy's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Even in Canada, our hardest hit area wants to reopen first.
Yeah, I'm looking on a thing that tells me like the cases around the world, or at least as close as we can get. Obviously, there's a ton of unreported cases everywhere.
Yeah.
But in Japan right now, they're just sitting under 15,000 total cases, just under 500 deaths, and just under 4,000 that have recovered. They have about 10,500 or so active cases. So I mean.
And Nexus
compared to like per million is very low.
Added me. Best case scenario for Switch remasters, remakes, ports: Xenoblade HD, Wonderful 101, Pikmin 3 Deluxe, 3D World, Mario All Stars 2 with extra polish 64 and Sunshine, and Prime Trilogy HD. Yeah. That's about right. So anyway, I'm hoping that we're coming out of this. I think that we just kind of have to wait and see how things turn out. Obviously, things are going to be a little slower, but content's still coming. Like I said, we have Xenoblade Chronicles coming out at the end of the month, and then in June, it looks like we'll get the Pokemon DLC and the Smash DLC. There's that 51 Worldwide Classics from Nintendo, and then hopefully in July, maybe we get 3D World Deluxe, and maybe Bravely Default 2 isn't delayed too much or at all, and it comes out in July or August. And then maybe by that point, Nintendo can start hitting its stride again. Maybe we see things like Paper Mario. Maybe there's another game we haven't even mentioned that comes out. Maybe we see another Donkey Kong game or an F-Zero or something. Like that'd be a nice like left field kind of game that just got announced that was ready. They've been working on it. Like, hey guys, here you go. That'd be really cool. I think, like we talk a lot about what's rumored and talked and like leaked or whatever, or what's already been announced, but it's kind of, you gotta think there's something that hasn't been rumored that is coming, that is not too far off. So you gotta think that some other Nintendo IP that hasn't been utilized in a little bit is close to ready. Maybe it won't come out this year because of the pandemic or something, but maybe we could see an announcement for something cool that we haven't been expecting.
Yeah.
There is a studio that we haven't heard from in a long time that was just given a new game to work on. What has Retro been doing, and is it something is it something that still exists, and is it something that they can drop this year?
Oh man, that's a very interesting point, because presumably it would be done, if it wasn't canceled, assuming it was a game.
Again, if it was being moved, if they're being moved into Metroid Prime 4, that means that they are either done or were very close to being done. Whatever they were doing, provided it wasn't canceled and provided it was a game. Because I believe there was also a rumor that they were doing something for the Disney theme park.
Universal Studios park? Was that a rumor?
Yeah. That was a rumor at one point. I don't know how strong the rumor was or how much traction it got or if there was even any legit backing, but that was a rumor that people were talking about. Very brief time though. And then of course it was the racing, Star Fox Racing, I think it was around that time. The Star Fox Racing was the more legitimate, stronger sourced rumor, so that's kind of what
the name was fake.
So here's an interesting thing. I've been talking about in my videos how 2019 had a strong second half, but the first half was very slow. That's what I've been speculating. I feel like the negativity has been a little strong lately, so I'm having some doubt. But I'll say that what Emily Rogers is saying here kind of fills me a little bit confidence that my initial prediction might be true, that the second half of the year is going to be a little top-heavy. So, and I want to point out that the person who alerted me to the Emily Rogers tweet was DFox in the chat, so thank you. This is what I'm assuming this is what you were referring to, DFox. So this is a tweet from Emily Rogers that came out recently. I think 2020 Switch lineup will come close to 2019's lineup. Animal Crossing 2020 is this year's Pokemon Sword and Shield. Oh, well, now I read the first line and had hope. Bravely Default 2 2020 is this year's Dragon Quest Octopath Traveler. Okay, I agree with that. No More Heroes 3 2020 is a more exciting release than 2019's Travis Strikes Back. Well, okay, interesting. Alright. I mean, well, I guess we'll see. You know, I think
the problem with that is that Pokemon landed in Holiday.
Yeah, that's where I was like, what? Okay, maybe not.
But so, no, I get the comparison, and I talked about that last year too, where them pushing it back gets two games that would have kind of competed for the casual crowd, and separating them just turned out amazingly well for Nintendo right now because they're making a lot of money.
And actually, the interesting thing is that Animal Crossing was delayed, so it wasn't even initially set for this year. So you got to think that Nintendo had, you know what I mean? Like, let's assume Animal Crossing came out on time, right? What would have been this year? What would have come out?
Nothing.
Makes you wonder if they pushed it back on purpose.
Tokyo Mirage Sessions and then Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition.
But at the same time, like
after that,
we look at the directs and how long it's been in between, and then you got to think that, put COVID aside, pretend that never happened. You got to think everything's happening on time. They're going to do their E3 announcement, their big direct at the E3 time slot, no matter what was going on with E3. You got to think that was going to be huge, because you can't go that long with nothing and then show up and be like, yeah, we got like 2 things. Investors are going to panic.
Right.
So I'm also, and again, when they were talking about that, they were talking about partners. That also means third parties. So I'm wondering how much of this was supposed to be banked on with third party releases. Because this was supposed to be the year that they claimed that third parties would have been able to, they were when they launched and everyone was complaining with third parties, they said our first party lineup is going to last us for the 3rd year, and in the 3rd year and beyond, we're going to start getting the third parties where they were actually making games from the beginning with the Switch in mind.
So there was actually another tweet the chat was referring to, and I think it was this one from Emily Rogers, which was a little bit earlier in the month of March. So this one was, my overall expectations for Switch software this year. Good year to be a plumber. Mario stuff. Solid year to be an RPG fan. Already announced stuff. Insane year to replay old games. HD remasters, deluxe ports, remakes. So hopefully this includes Metroid Prime Trilogy. Because if she's already... Here's my thing. If she's already talking about being a good year to be a plumber and Xenoblade and Bravely Default 2, like, how many other HD remasters, deluxe ports, remakes could there be that are like high profile? I feel like Metroid Prime Trilogy really falls into this category, you know? So maybe that. And then she said, decent year for more casual games. Animal Crossing equals casual. Well, we know there have been some casual games that have come out that are coming out, like 51 Worldwide Classics. Pokemon, if she equates Pokemon to Animal Crossing, that's Pokemon DLC, obviously. I mean, she's mostly talking about things that are already known. No hints of Zelda here. We do know that some insiders were hearing early in the year that Zelda wasn't going to be a thing for this year. And then, like a month before that, we were hearing that Zelda would be a thing this year. So, we'll see how things turn out. Obviously, with everything, we have to be doubtful of it.
I'm wondering what that was actually, because it seems like all of those were separate things. And again, if you're going to leak something, you pay attention to what your wording is in the order of things.
I don't know if she cares to leak
your remakes, your HD remasters, stuff like that. I feel like there's something else that's supposed to be coming on top of the Mario stuff, and it's not being lumped in with it.
I think that's Metroid Prime Trilogy HD.
Yeah.
I think it kind of, and Pikmin. No, for sure it's Pikmin 3. For sure, Pikmin 3. And it's plural, so you gotta think more than that. So Pikmin 3 Metroid Prime Trilogy really is what I think kinda is what we got. Although, I was talking about it earlier, guys. What if we got another Nintendo IP this year? And there's one franchise that I really think kind of deserves like the remake, remaster plus treatment that hasn't gotten it. It rhymes with... I'm not gonna rhyme it. Kid Icarus Uprising. Kid Icarus Uprising.
I thought you were gonna say F-Zero, honestly.
Oh, yeah, but Nintendo's not gonna do that because that would make me happy.
They're not gonna do Kid Icarus either.
Well,
let's stay realistic.
Okay.
I mean.
Come on, give me one. Neither.
I don't know who would be making it right now though.
It's a remaster, so.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it could go to anyone.
Yeah, anyone.
Yeah.
Oh hey, I got actually a really interesting question for you.
I feel like you're gonna be sarcastic.
What? No. What
Okay.
are some of the port studios doing?
I don't know.
Some of our
what's
our
Grezzo
big-name
working on?
port
Well,
studios.
Grezzo
You
just
haven't
did
heard
Link's
from.
Awakening last year, right?
What's Panic Button doing right now? I don't think Panic Button is Panic Button doing Doom Eternal. I actually thought it was
Yes.
somebody else.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I believe did Panic Button do Doom?
Oh no, Panic Button is doing Doom Eternal.
Yeah, and they're
Okay.
working, I believe, with the developer hand in hand to make sure that the port works better. So that's,
They are.
I believe that's one of theirs. Don't they
Oh,
do
that's the
multiple
game that came
projects?
out this year. Witcher 3. Who developed that?
That was not.
No, it was not
Button.
Panic Button. It was another
Goodness.
It was.
Yeah, some people are starting to think they're maybe a little bit more impressive than Panic Button right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
More impressive, but they're good. I
they're
forget.
they're high quality porters.
Oh, but that studio was also bought by THQ,
Yes, that changes a lot.
so they might not be working on a port. Well, they might not be working on a port specifically for Switch.
Saber
although they
Interactive.
could be.
That's who did it.
Oh,
I believe Saber Interactive is working on something. I
Oh,
forget
they-
what it is though.
so Kai Mingo, have a good night as well. Stormex Quick had a question. Do you know when will there be more Pokemon news about Isle of Armor? My answer is no. I do not know when there will be more news. Well, I'll tell you this.
Direct.
I fear another Pokemon Direct, maybe
E3 Direct.
that.
Actually, well, there is the pre-E3 Pokemon Direct that usually happens, so I don't know what they're doing with that either. They've been doing that every year now. Well, the last couple of years.
I expect there to be Pokemon news relatively soon because Isle of Armor is set to come out in June. So I expect more news on that. And we talked about it earlier. We don't really think it's going to get delayed. It could get delayed, but my speculation is it won't because we've gotten multiple updates on that DLC throughout this year. And we just had a Direct Mini at the end of March where they showed it at the very end. And it was a DLC trailer. If you're going to do that for a DLC, I kind of think that means that they're well off with that. So they probably expect it to come out on time. So expect news in June. Maybe we get some trailer drops later this month. That's possible. But definitely by June, there will be some update on the Isle of Armor DLC for Pokemon.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. We don't see it really getting delayed, just because they haven't announced it yet. I feel like it's so close.
At this point, you would have to have told us. I think, yeah, we're a month away.
Or maybe they're trying to figure out a way to tell us without having everyone freak out because
Well, I
that's just
mean-
the way it's been going for them lately.
Yeah, I think it's just happening. Think about it. Pokemon doesn't they don't delay. That doesn't happen. They're like, no, this is coming out now. They don't do that. I mean, obviously with the pandemic they might have to, but I don't think they'll have to because it's just DLC.
And again, as I think it was Brandon was saying earlier, Sakurai had mentioned that because it was DLC, production wasn't slowed too much, whereas if it was early in the cycle, it would have been pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, he specifically
different.
said he felt sorry for anybody making new games during this time.
Yeah, so I feel like the DLC is safe. And again, as I said earlier, if it gets delayed, I don't see it being delayed for more than a week or two.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a long delay. It's not getting pushed to next year or something silly.
So, I know I've been harping on this for a while, but at this point, the expectation for Breath of the Wild 2 coming out this year is probably, it's diminishing significantly. So, when it is confirmed to be coming out this year, which obviously may not be the case, but if it actually does, that's going to be such a huge moment, you know? Like,
yeah,
it would, and again, it may not, at this point, maybe, I shouldn't even say it may not, it probably won't happen. But if it does, that's going to be like a huge thing. Like, to think that, like, maybe throughout the year, we don't get too many big ground up new games, mostly just remasters and stuff throughout the year. But if they close out the year with a Breath of the Wild 2, that would just, you know what I mean? Like, to finish off the year with that kind of game would be almost poetic. But I understand that very well may not be the case. I think at this point, most people think it's for sure not coming out this year.
Yeah, and you also have to wonder about what they're expecting with sales, because, well, I guess Nintendo doesn't have to worry too much because their games are pretty much evergreen anyways.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at the amount of money it takes to do Breath of the Wild 2, if the world is still a mess and people are out of work and people are losing their homes, they don't really want to drop Breath of the Wild 2 into the middle of that mess.
Yes and no, though, because look at Animal Crossing.
It's early though. People are still
early.
hoping. Oh, I'll be back to work in a month. If they're now 6 months in and they haven't been back to work, they're not going to be so free to.
That's a really good point.
Willing to spend money.
It may just be smarter to just wait when the economic climate is right. But also, you can't have nothing. But which is why maybe they prioritize remasters and stuff. Which, if the sales bomb, hey, they bombed, but it was a remaster, so we didn't lose that much money anyway. I understand your point. It does make sense.
So it just, you don't know what's going to happen, and it's so weird to think that. Just the way, like, again, we're in unprecedented times. We have no clue what to expect going forward, and it is what it is.
You're right.
That sucks.
Yeah, but
I could use it right now. I could use something like that to sink my teeth into.
We'll see what happens. I think either way, there will be games to play. It may be a little slower this year, but as we've talked about, there's a lot of ports and remasters that can at least come out this year, and development may not be too impacted, but may not impact development so much that we're talking about delays that are 6 months or a year. Like, it could just be a couple months. So, you know, maybe things will work out. Maybe the transition to remote development won't be too significant for some development teams. Obviously, only time will really tell. But I think we're pretty much near the end of this discussion. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on before we call it a night?
Not really.
Just stay safe. Do what you can. Wash your hands. Stay safe.
Keep it clean.
Yeah.
I do see a question here from Doodlefox McGee. You think we're going to get more new companies in Smash? Arc System Works, Activision, Ubisoft, Koei, Tecmo, Marvelous, etc. I think maybe one or two. I could see that happening. I'm kind of expecting more first-party DLC for this Fighters Pass, so I think there's going to be less opportunities for new third-party companies to get involved. That's just my perspective. It may be the case that there's only the ARMS character as first party and the rest is third party, but I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be more sort of even in terms of first party, third party, so less opportunities for newer companies. But, you know, they got to put in some big characters in there. There's going to be a few, so we'll see who they are. Yeah, do you guys have anything to add to that, or?
I mean, we got what, 2 new companies in the first pass, didn't we? SNK for Terry Bogard.
I guess Atlas was not represented beforehand, but Atlas is, Sega's a parent company for Atlas, so Sega had already been involved beforehand.
So I guess then
Square had already been involved beforehand.
If you don't want to count Atlas, then it'd just be one.
Microsoft had not been involved beforehand.
Oh yeah, Microsoft.
So Microsoft and SNK. Yeah.
Yeah, depending, if you count Atlas, it'd be 3, but if you don't want to count them because they're part of Sega, then you can just count them.
Yeah.
It's still 2.
2.5.
So we could, I think we'll see at least one more.
Yeah, I think that's fair. At least one more. That makes sense. That'd be pretty cool. So, anyways, guys, stay safe. Thank you so much for coming. Make sure to check out both Dumo and Brandon's channel. They are linked in the description below. Leaving a like would be appreciated. Yeah, I'd like it. It'd be cool. But, yeah, that's it. You guys have anything else you want to share or talk about?
No.
I'll second the leaving a like. It's worth it.
Saves spiritual energy.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all really soon. Stay tuned. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
This stream would end. YouTube's like not even work. I can't even end the stream. It's like legit like not loading the end button. All right, now it's loaded. Take care. See ya.